Oh, good. All right. All right, great. All right, welcome everyone to the June 14th meeting of the Hadley Select Board. So first order of business tonight is the consent agenda. And this evening we have two warrants to approve.
So moved.
You're going to wait for the rest of it?
No.
Then I'm gonna second it.
We already read
It's gonna be a quick meeting.
All right, so we have a resignation from Hadley Media. One of our, Andrew Marquis, is that his last name? Marquis, who's with us for a short while, but contributed a lot in his short tenure, so we're going to miss Marcus, or
No,
miss Andrew. We have a common vic license for Mass Baked Potato LLC, also known as Wendy's. We have a request from Edward Hopkins Educational Foundation, which is operating on behalf of the Hadley Schools for a first annual celebration of lights to be held December 9th, 2017. We have a request for a town hall closure, and this is a practice that we have followed intermittently over the years when the holiday falls during the week. So this is a request to close town hall on Monday, July 3rd, in advance of the July 4th holiday on Tuesday. And we have...
go ahead. I had a question on that.
Okay, and then last item, we have a request to relocate the First Settlers Monument near the Lake Warner Dam. This was a historical commission request that was submitted by Ginger Goldsberry. Okay.
Okay. I would request, since we have folks in the audience this evening that I think would like to speak to the Edward Hopkins Educational Foundation request, that we allow them to speak if we could. And Mr. Washkevitz, would you like baked potato Wendy's DBA taken off that so we can speak about that?
No, you don't have to take it off. I got a couple questions about these licenses for
Motion,
some of these
then.
restaurants.
Motion.
Motion to accept.
Okay, motion made. Is there a second?
Second for discussion.
Okay, go ahead, Jeff.
When we were redoing these licenses every year, is the Board of Health, Police and Fire and everybody notified, DPW? Because this particular one, I know myself, inspecting the grease traps, they're not on schedule and they don't have a schedule, this particular business.
They don't have a what?
They don't have a schedule for cleaning their grease traps. They're not cleaning it quarterly, and it needs to be addressed.
So this kind of command and control coordination with the licenses, not only in terms of their compliance with other licensing requirements, but also their whether they're up to date in terms of all their taxes and municipal charges is something that we're working actively on. We have developed a new permit application form which includes a checkoff. So that's being circulated for comments right now.
All right.
To address that specific issue. Right?
Well,
Yeah.
and this eventually will be added into the IT, into every department?
Yep.
All right. It's just something that, a couple more loose ends that we need to address.
Yeah. So one of the things that you can do is you can grant the common vic, and then we can hold it until you've had a chance to, until we've had a chance to confer with Wendy's and say, have you developed your schedule for grease trap cleaning, etc. These are the reasons why this is important.
That would certainly be my preference
well.
in light of it.
Yeah.
As well.
Okay, so we'll make the, assuming that the vote is taken in favor, we'll make that subject to.
Yep.
Okay. The other thing is we have a couple of folks here tonight, Ms. Tudrin and Mr. Peelis from the Education Foundation. Did you want to tell the folks a little bit about this celebration?
Sure. What we're proposing is to have what we're hoping to be an annual celebration at the Hadley Hopkins Memorial Park gazebo. And our first scheduled one is scheduled for December 9th, and we're hoping it's going to become a community event. Some of you, I'm sure many of you, remember the late Dorothy Russell, and at one point she had what was called the Festival of Lights, where it was on a weekend, and all the as many houses in town as possible put the lighted candles in their windows. And there hasn't been much community involvement since her passing. So what we are proposing is to have this event where we've already spoken to band director at the school and the superintendent and the principal. The band and the chorus would be involved. What we're asking of you tonight, since it is on town property, we have the Weinzick Nursery who wants to donate a tree and plant it. What did you say, Joe? A 12?
10 or 15.
10 or 15 foot tree. And since it's town property, we need your permission for that to happen. So that's really what we're here for tonight.
Superintendent thought it was a wonderful idea as well?
Yes, she did.
That's the only questions that I had, and the opportunity to let them speak to the issue as well.
Okay.
A couple
Any other
other
questions?
things.
Excuse me, Joe, go ahead.
A couple other things that we would do during that evening is maybe have hot chocolate and coffee kind of thing. We spoke to the band director, the principal, and the superintendents, and they're all in favor of doing this. And every year we hope to build on this kind of thing and make it maybe a little larger and get other community groups together. We're hoping that December 9th is not going to be a conflict with the school or anything else going on in the community. If it is, we can certainly move that date. That's not set in concrete. But we basically, the people that are donating the tree, we have to notify. That would go on maybe sometime in September. And but that's the main thing. Wherever that tree is going to be placed, well, we'll discuss that. If you have any ideas or anything like that. I'm assuming that there is a power box on as you look at the gazebo from Route 9 on the left-hand side, and somewhere within that particular area forward would be maybe sort of an ideal area, but again, that isn't set in concrete either, and the tree could be placed maybe at a better location or whatever.
We have Marlo look at that,
I was gonna say-
Jerry?
School,
Well,
the school told us.
Well, I know,
But in terms of any power or
power
anything
and
like
things,
that?
I think DPW should
Yeah.
get involved with that too.
Yeah,
We actually
nice.
met him
Marlo?
just coincidentally one day here in the hall when we were looking for David.
Mhm.
So he's aware of it too,
Okay.
and told us to get in touch with him.
I think it's a great idea. I just want to make sure that it's not anywhere with our pipes and things
Oh,
like
right,
that.
Right,
you know.
right,
exactly.
right.
And for growth, you know, you want to make sure you
Right.
have enough room so
Mhm.
that it does grow.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very good.
Great. Okay, anything else?
The only thing I'd like to suggest is somebody coordinate with the Friends of Lake Warner, because they have the tree lighting on the lake, and I don't think we'd want them both the same day,
Exactly.
you.
because
Good
they'd
idea.
have to choose between the two.
That's
You
the
know.
boys' worst, isn't it? That's the boys' worst too, right, don't they?
I think it's, well, it's a combination of them, but
Yeah.
I know last year the Friends made soup and everything like that, and they handled that end of it, food.
Thanks for that.
Okay, so there's a motion made and seconded. If there are any further discussion items, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very
Thank you very
much.
much.
Thanks for your support.
Okay, so we have a scheduled appointment at 7:15, our first one, but we're not quite there yet, so. Public comment, is there anybody here this evening for public comment?
I don't know if I have public comment, but this might not be the appropriate time, but I'm Ruth Ann Fitzgibbons, I'm a resident of Hadley and a member of the Hadley Education Association. And the reason I'm here tonight is we have some questions about the possible adoption of the Massachusetts General Law 32B. And I'm wondering if I should wait or ask those questions right now.
I think if it's okay with you, Ruthann, we want to make sure that you have the opportunity, but it might make more sense for folks if we hear the report from the Hampshire Insurance Trust first.
Okay.
And then, obviously, the select board invited them here this evening, so we'll have some questions, but then we'll absolutely be happy to recognize you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Okay, so, let's see, fire substation and senior center update? Right. Okay, both projects are on hold, and the fire committee's meeting next week?
No, we're on hold too, because probably for another 2 to 3 weeks, because the OPM and the architect, we are due some renderings from the architect.
Mhm.
So I think that is what we're waiting for.
Yeah, there is a late proposal that came in having to do with the geotech survey of the property where the proposed senior center is going to be, so that's listed under other business, so if you wanted to take that up now, that would,
Sure.
So-
Yeah, why don't we do that?
okay.
Is Jane going to speak to it, or are you?
Happy to speak to it, but if, I'll defer to Jane first.
So, one of the reasons our costs were way high was the site preparation. So, in order to save lots of money, we would like to spend $6,150 for more geotech work to define the specific areas where the soil has been found to be not supportive of a building. So what they're gonna do is go back in. What happened was, one of the borings they did, they had to dig down. They said we would have to take soil out for 10 feet deep and replace it with suitable soil for support for a building. And because there was only one boring at that area, they assumed 1/3 of the building would have to have that done. So what this testing will do is to limit that down to, they'll try and absolutely pinpoint where the site is that needs to be fixed. And if you sign it tonight, that's great, because then they can get on with that. And I know you're waiting to hear our costs for the new size building. And the architects are ready to go to the estimators on Friday, and the geotech people said it would take them 2 weeks to have their things in, so that will help speed up the process.
So where would the $6,100 come from?
It would come from the funding article for the senior center, the $5.3 million. And
I think it's a good idea. I think we need to tweak that up and get the right numbers to the people so that we can see what exactly can happen. Again, it's not that, it's gonna pinpoint where the building's gonna be able to be built and give us a better idea of what needs to be done to accommodate to build on the best place available. And this really tweaks it out.
It kind of amazes me, though, that they only did one test boring. They did 3.
They did 3, but
So they know which
So
way
they-
they gotta go.
But they knew from
Replace the
even
building.
doing North Hadley that the whole area from here, from Connecticut to Vermont, is blue clay. So I think that's what's causing us the problem, because we ran into the same problem up in North Hadley, which, hey, you have to bring out what's there and refill with,
It actually looks like, well, we don't seem to have blue clay in our report at all. We have a lot of sand and silt. But what there is some organic matter, which is what's not stable for holding a building. So that's what has to be removed and bring in suitable.
this is probably a buried horizon, so I'm thinking hundreds of years ago, there was a flood event that buried the topsoil and then redeposited sand and gravel, and then the topsoil grew on top of that. So that's what,
There was a
this
flood.
is probably what it is.
The other part of the test will be a couple of pits in the parking lot area to look at a drainage system that isn't the infiltration, but rather a swale system, which would be much less expensive.
Less expensive, yeah.
the original plan called for the water to be mitigated beneath the ground with 100 parking spots. Now that they're going down to somewhat less than 100, if there's above ground mediation is going to be able to take care of the water, and it needs to be finite and figured it out. And it's in excess of $200,000 to put the system below. So if we can get this done with the parking lot made smaller, is a significant savings. So we're looking to save as much money as we can and come in on budget. Ask for your support.
Okay,
Motion accept.
Can I
there's a
make
motion.
one comment?
Yep.
The problematic area with this whole situation with both buildings is both committees didn't have any money up front. They did it by sweat and teeth, and to get it. Many members spent a lot of their own money to get it up and running. Maybe that's a lesson we should learn for the future. Building a new building, a subcommittee needs money to do these initial tests before we go out and, put a rubber stamp on a project. We have to plan by giving them money to work with,
Yeah, but in this case, Donald, obviously if they got 3 borings and they know which way they're going to move the structure a little bit, and they've got clean borings wherever they're gonna drill now, then we should be all right with the building. So
I guess what I'm trying to say, John, these tests should have been done a long time ago before the building went further. That should
Yeah.
have been the first things but nobody had any money before, to take it from anywhere. They didn't have a budget to work with. And that's something we should be concerned with in the future.
Yeah, a
Giving
lesson
them
learned.
ample money to make sure these studies can be completed before we jump in the whole thing in too far and then we find this out.
Yep, no, I totally agree with you. So again, lesson learned going forward, you know, but in the meantime, so I think you made a motion, but I don't think we got that far.
I
Motion?
don't think there was a second.
Right. So motion on the floor, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion made and seconded to accept this recommendation. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, thank you. Perfect. My phone says 7:14 and a half, so we're going to go to the...
As we all know, the chairman's phone is always correct.
That's right. Okay, so tonight we would like to welcome Mr. Joseph Shea, who is the Executive Director of the Hampshire Franklin Group Insurance Trust. And welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, and we asked Mr. Shea if, in a previous meeting, if you were watching, we asked Mr. Shea to come before us tonight to provide us with an update on the financial health of the Group Insurance Trust, and then also talk about the possibility of the environment that might create any sort of conversation about changes going forward.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for having me. The Hampshire County Group Insurance Trust is a self-insured entity, and I'm not sure how familiar everybody is with insurance and the self-insurance world, where being a self-insured entity, all of the municipal groups that participate in the trust actually own the trust. The trust is an insurance company basically on its own. We have 69 municipal groups, with Hadley being one of them, that basically own the trust, where we then go out and hire Blue Cross Blue Shield. We use them, we pay them to use their contracts with all of their doctors and hospital systems. We then also pay them to adjudicate our claims. So then at the end of the year, when we look to set premium rates or benefit changes, it's the trust membership that makes those benefit changes and premium decisions, where basically the timeline is in December, the executive committee will meet with me and will make recommendations at that point in time for any premium rate increases, and then we meet with an insurance advisory committee where all 69 of our groups.
Is it impossible for you to say or decreases?
Or, well, actually, we did have a decrease 3 years ago on our retiree Medicare program, where we made a change to it, and that there was a decrease. And actually, in the packet I sent out, we're going to look at the sort of the history of the premiums. Unfortunately, there was mostly increases, but we did have a 4-year period where we had 0 increases across the board, which is almost unheard of. So there's an executive committee of the trust that's made up of 9 members, and then the insurance advisory committee. Each municipality has a voting share for the insurance advisory committee, and final decisions are again made in that December and January time period. In my packet that I handed out, you can just walk through. Page 1 is just a quick sort of snapshot from insurance year 2015 through 12/31/2016. And if you just really go to the bottom line of the total net assets, you're going to see from insurance year 2015 to the end of 16 a drop of $7 million of net assets. And net assets is really our unrestricted cash, or our reserve, basically, that we have to offset any premium increases or to offset any large claims coming through the door. So just going from assets to liabilities, we have cash and short-term investments. Then we have CDs and an investment account that's a little more aggressive, with our investment money, or with the money to earn a little better rate, just because, as we all know, the banks don't pay really anything if you leave it in the bank. So we've been very successful with that one particular account. We're averaging 7.5–8% return on the account in the last year alone, which helps, again, the bottom line. Member account receivables, that's just units that still owe us money as of that particular month. The liabilities of the trust, Medicare Part D premium, we purchase for the Medicare subscribers the pharmaceutical portion of their plan, and we pay the federal government for that. ACA, transitional reinsurance payable, in the wonderful world of the Affordable Care Act. There's a variety of taxes and fees that you don't really see, but that the trust is responsible for paying on your behalf. And at the end of the year, that there was a $228,000 bill payable to the federal government for an ACA fee.
I don't see anything in 15's line item for that. Is this new?
Right, yes, yes.
Okay. Joe, do you mind if we ask questions as
Sure,
we
no,
go along,
feel-
or do you
yeah,
want us to
feel-
wait to the
No,
end?
feel free to jump in.
You know, I realize why there's a $7 million loss because of being the representative, but could you briefly explain to the people why we lost $7 million? It's not poor management.
Oh, no.
You know what I mean? So they get an idea why we lost that $7 million.
Sure. There's a variety of reasons. First off, we basically had that time period where, if you look on page 2, which is our rate increase history, and it goes back to 2000. From 2000 to 2005-ish, there was some very significant premium increases, and then it sort of stabilized for a while. And then from 2011 to 2015 or 2014, we had a 0% increase across the board, which again is really unheard of. And then at that same time period, our claim experience was running very, very well. So we were actually putting away a lot of money into our reserve, and our reserve account was overflowing, or we had a nice piggy bank that was growing. We knew that wasn't going to last forever, just because claims go up. So in 2015 and 2016, we did have rate increases. The rate increases that were recommended by me to the Executive Committee and the Insurance Advisory Committees in both of those years, they were rejected and actually decreased. They just felt that because of the excess reserve that we had, we didn't need to have a premium increase that was recommended by myself, that we would raid the piggy bank. And then we get to the final year, which is the 2017 insurance year, and we saw rate increases of 9.4% on our HMO and 10.8% on the PPO. And in that 3 to 4 year time period, again, we didn't have rate increases for a 4-year time period, and then the last 3 years, what we've seen are significant increases in claims, in our claim experience, specifically in our pharmaceuticals. In the last 4 years, our pharmaceutical expenses have doubled. They've gone from $6 million a year to $12 million a year.
Why?
We ask the drug companies. The drug companies are, pick the word, money hungry, gouging organizations where they can literally charge anything that they want, and there is no control within the United States to stop them. And one of the things that, doing a little digging, was that we even discovered, even on the tier 1 drugs, which is a generic drug, that they started incrementally bumping up those costs for those. So even though it was still a very cheap drug, they could bump it up by an extra $5, and nobody sees it, doesn't feel it, except for the insurance companies. And we, like I said, are essentially an insurance company. So again, we saw our expenses just on pharmaceuticals double from $6 million to $12 million a year. And we weren't really expecting that. Blue Cross wasn't expecting it. It was sort of a surprise. We had 1 year of 26% increase, followed by a second year of a 39% increase, which, again, there's no crystal ball that says you're going to see an increase like that year after year, and we did. And then throw on top of that the Affordable Care Act. We paid about $1.1 to $1.2 million worth of fees to the federal government. We don't know what's going to happen with the new president. The biggest portion of those fees has ended. There was a 3-year shelf life on those fees. So ongoing, we expect the fees to be about $10,000. So big difference between a few $100,000 of fees versus $10,000. So again, the bigger portion of those fees has stopped, but we don't know what's going to happen with the new administration. So
I think it's easy, it's easy to relate to. Just take the case of the EpiPen. They raised that up 600%, going from $100 to $600.
Right.
In the case of a bee sting or a peanut reaction,
Right.
and things of that.
Yeah.
And that's just one drug.
correct.
So.
And just before you continue, just going to the balance sheet or the solvency of the insurance trust. If somebody were to look at the balance sheet and see cash reduced as significantly as it has been for the reasons that you've just articulated, somebody could be quite concerned, like,
Right.
well, you know, they've only got 2 years left if this keeps up. So could you talk about?
Right.
I think that's important.
When you look at page one, the unrestricted is again, the reserve that we have. And the rule of thumb in the insurance world is to have approximately 3 months worth of claims as a reserve. 3 months of claims for the trust is approximately $13 to $14 million. So we still are over reserved. So if you look at 2015, we were really over reserved. So again, we've chewed up $10 million of that reserve. We knew we were going to use that reserve to basically subsidize rates for a while. What we weren't expecting was to take a $10 million chunk over a 3-year period. If it was, $10 million over a 5, 6, 7-year period, that'd be one thing. But again, the chunks were bigger. And even with the 9.4% increase that we saw this year, we were projecting, or the actuaries at Blue Cross Blue Shield are projecting a little under $3 million loss. So we expect to take another chunk out of the reserve. Even taking that next chunk out of the reserve, we still are properly reserved. So from financial end, yes, we look at the cash, it's going one way and one way only, but we're able to bank and over-reserve for a long extended period. So we are financially still in very good shape.
But do you have to use Blue Cross and Blue Shield, or do you go out to bid with them?
No, we use them primarily because of their network. So no, I mean, we haven't put that out to bid since I've been in this role, which has been 5 years. What we do put out to bid is we do employ a reinsurance program to protect the trust from any large claims. The reinsurance program works for this past year that just ended. We had a stop loss amount of $250 where
$250?
I'm sorry, $250,000.
Right.
And the first $250,000 of a particular claim is paid for by the trust. Anything over $250,000 is paid for by the reinsurer. The reinsurer happens to be Blue Cross Blue Shield, but we do put that out to bid every year.
Do you have any sort of aggregate stop loss for
No.
multiple claims? Okay, so it's just on an individual per occurrence.
Correct.
So the
And-
one thing that theoretically could really truly hammer the trust in an unexpected way, you'd have to have a significant number of individual claims.
Right.
Right, okay.
Right, and this year, the insurance year that just ended, which was March 31st, we did have a claimant that hit the magic $1 million mark and blew right through it, and the claims are still ongoing, where it was $1.3 million, $1.4 million, and we were responsible for the first $250,000, and the reinsurer basically was on the hook for the next $1 million, $1.1 million. This insurance year that just ended, we had either 4 or 5 people that went over that $250,000 mark. And actually, the reinsurance premiums that we paid out the door, we actually got back more so. We were actually in the black, so it was a good plan or good decision that we made. The reinsurance year that just ended for 3/31. Last year's plan was even better. It saved the trust approximately $800,000 because we had 16 people that went over the stop loss amount. So the only bad thing about that is because we've sort of had a winning streak of 2 years where it benefited the trust the last 2 years, our rates go up, our reinsurance premiums go up. And the $1 million claim is still running. It's a dependent that we're sitting there with our fingers crossed. They turn 26 in November, and we're hoping it comes off our plan. And if it does, great. If it doesn't, then our reinsurance is going to see increases year after year. So a combination of things. One, claim started significantly, rapidly increasing. Pharmaceuticals sort of blew us out of the water. We weren't expecting that. Throw in ACA fees. So it was a combination of events, but the prime target was really the pharmaceuticals.
Most of your budget is fine, it's managed well. The only problematic area I have is what you're being assessed by the COG. And I
Okay.
think it's unfair for professional and technology services. They've escalated you way up, no one else has, because they know you have money to pay for it, and it helps with their situation, trying to balance their budget for the COG. But it's being balanced on ratepayers, and I don't like that, you know.
Right, the trust has an approximately $500,000 budget for the four staff and for the office and just really running the operations of the trust. And to Donald's point, yes, we pay $47,000 a year for an administrative overhead that I've tried to negotiate or tried to argue that I think is too high, and and it was 54,000. We did knock it down to 47,000 last year. I tried to get it knocked down further again this year.
If you
It's
weren't,
turned down.
well, I guess you're not inextricably linked to the COG, but you're a brotherhood right now. If you weren't part of that partnership or brotherhood, would it cost you more to go out on your own, or would you
No,
theoretically?
I've done research where I've met with a couple of years running, commercial real estate broker, and talked about, space, whether it's in the King Street corridor of Northampton or, further out where the King Street corridor is a little more expensive, where if you do go outside of that, it's cheaper.
Yep.
And then you would have to look at the rest of the infrastructure of IT and phone services and stuff like that. And could we do it for less than $47,000? Absolutely.
Okay. I mean, it's not going to resolve your claims experience
Right. Oh, no,
issue,
no,
but-
yeah,
but
yeah,
it's,
I mean,
to
it's-
Donald's point, it's certainly good to know that you
Right.
have some options.
Yeah, I mean, the 47,000, represents almost 9 to 10% of my
10%.
Yeah,
budget.
it's pretty,
So-
pretty good chunk. Yeah. Okay, but sorry, so
So,
you continue with
so,
your.
so again, with that, so again, there was many components that made up where that $10 million loss occurred. But again, the driver was claims and ACA fees. And then the third page is just a quick summary for the town of Hadley by participating in the trust. The state used to, and they eliminated this a year ago, but we continue to do it just because it's a good snapshot. And what the third page shows is if comparing the trust to the state GIC, and the state GIC's most actively used plan, which happens to be the Tufts Health Plan Navigator. And it's tough to do an actual apples-to-apples comparison just because we can look at the premium, but what it really doesn't reflect are any of the benefits. Our benefits are vastly different from the GIC because the GIC has a variety of co-pays and deductibles across the board, where we do not. But in a summary, July 1st of last year, Hadley belonging to the trust, there was a $240,000 savings to the town of Hadley by participating in the trust when comparing ourselves just to the state GIC plan. So that's, so again, we've seen ourselves lose approximately $10 million. We're still low reserve, but we don't want to be like a lot of the other joint purchase and trust groups across the Commonwealth. A lot of them have been scrambling over the last couple of years just because they've had the same thing happen. They've seen premiums or claims go up significantly. Then they've gone scrambling to figure out what to do. And a number of them have rolled out GIC-like plans. A number of them have actually lost municipalities that have moved elsewhere, whether it was from Maya into the GIC or looked elsewhere. So
Have you lost membership?
no, we've never lost anyone, and
That's rather telling, I would think, then.
no, and we continue to get calls every year, and we say no more than we say yes. I've been here a little over 5 years, and we're adding a group, the town of Athol, on July 1st, so it'll be the 7th group in 5 years that we've added. And like I said, we say no more than we say yes, where when a municipality looks or makes a request to enter into the trust, we do look at their the last 2 years worth of claim experience just to see if it makes a good fit for the trust. And in most cases, it's not.
So, David, did you then want to, either you or Joe, talk about the the initiative that's underway right now.
Right, so we'd talked about it, and Linda and John are in this conversation as well, so if anybody wants to take the lead, that's fine. But we talked about the future of providing good quality health insurance to our employees, to our retirees, and we want to make sure that given the uncertainty of the market right now, given the uncertainty of the kinds of laws that may be passed by the federal government in the next month or so, that the select board and the trust have as many tools in your tool chest as you need in order to make adjustments should they be needed in the future. So tonight we're recommending that the board adopt Mass General Law Chapter 32B, Sections 21, which is a procedural section. It just outlines the process. And then Section 22, which allows for plan design. As part of that, just a little bit of background procedurally to get us to this point of the conversation. We have sent out by certified mails return receipt as required by law notices to the 4 unions and the retirees. Those unions be DPW or the UPCU, Dispatch, which is under the Teamsters, Police Department again under the UPCU, and the school unions under HEA, as well as a letter to the state retiree representative and notice to the Secretary of Administration and Finance. So we've done all of that to comply with the law so that everybody's put on notice about the meeting tonight. I also took the additional steps of handing copies to the local union representatives, as well as calling up each union business officer with the exception of each HEA, and I'll get to that in a moment, and just talk through what are we trying to do, why is this important, why should we keep our options open, what does this talk do in terms of long-term stability for our ability to provide a health insurance. So we've reached out to everybody. I reached out to the superintendent of schools in your case and talked through that issue, and I hope that was further communicated to you. So everybody's at the table at this point, and it's important to stress that this is just a procedural motion right now on those 2 sections of Mass General Law Chapter 32. And that when and if we engage in any kind of real change in healthcare plan design, there is an opportunity for all the unions as well as the retirees to come to the table for negotiations about impact and what this means. So,
And just to be clear for everybody, if we were not to take action to adopt this Mass General Law provision, then what position? What's the existing position that we're in?
As I understand, we need to take this vote by July 1st because there's going to be a meeting coming up.
That was sort of a date that was used or selected just to get the municipal groups to start having discussions, because we didn't want to wait until later in the year. Let's say again, if we voted, let's say in the fall, and there wasn't enough time to have meetings and discussions where, so at our last IAC meeting, I did set a July date just to get the ball rolling and getting the municipal groups discussing. So,
And again, totally hypothetical.
well, and I guess, and I was telling David earlier, I've had a number of groups come back to me saying that they were not going to be adopting 21-22 for a variety of reasons. A couple of them, we have a lot of small municipal groups that are part of the trust. They don't have unions, so they said this doesn't apply to them. We've had a couple bigger groups that have said that they're not going to adopt it because collective bargaining doesn't cover benefit changes, so they don't feel that it's necessary for them to adopt 21 or 22. So from the trust perspective, that's fine. And if a group doesn't want to adopt 21-22, then the trust can make changes, and they will make changes, but we're trying to, I guess, inform and keep all of the municipal groups updated on potential things that they need to do. And in your particular case, you know, it's 21 and 22. And I know David's talked to the town council and you know, that based on union contract language, that benefits are discussed and again, I don't know to what detail, but
So
it
that
looks like-
basically is why you're here, that there may be healthcare changes.
Right, the trust has been
That's the
discussing
bottom
for the
line.
last year and a half potential changes because, you know, when we were warning folks that there was gonna be a significant premium increases, you know, right down the horizon, and this year came along and it was 9.4 and 10.8% respectively. If we don't make any changes, you're going to see a fairly good size premium increase again next year. And municipal groups are concerned on what's that doing to their budget and how are they gonna come up with that kind of money to cover double-digit increases. So for the last year and a half at our IAC meetings, we've had discussions. And the first one was, you know, if we made benefit changes, you know, what is the general consensus of what you'd like to see or what kind of changes? And the first, it was sort of made loud and clear, is they did not want a true deductible plan, you know, where there's a $500 or $1,000.
The high deductible that
Right, where-
private industry's gone to.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, as we had further discussions, it was more agreeable to have co-pays instituted, where if you look at our plan, the only co-pays we have are our office visits of either $15 or $20 and a $75 emergency room copay. That's it. There's no copays for hospitalizations, MRIs, outpatient surgeries, nothing, which we are sort of standing alone in the industry to have that kind of plan. So as the discussions went on, we discussed having, again, instituting copays, and then also looking at our pharmaceutical plan of maybe imaging or having an image of what the GIC did, where the GIC did add a deductible to their pharmaceutical plan. It's not large, it's $100 for an individual, $200 for a family, and that's our biggest pain point. So we, you know, are taking a serious look at having a deductible plan just for the pharmaceuticals only and layering in co-payments as well. But we wouldn't have that overall deductible that a lot of insurance plans have.
Some insurances have $2,000 to $3,000
Correct.
deductible.
Yes.
I see that all the time.
And with the state GIC, as I was
$60
mentioning earlier,
$60
it's
specialties.
Well, again, that would be one of the proposals
Yeah,
for,
I mean,
for our plan.
20 for just family practice.
Right, and with the GIC, a copay doesn't go toward the deductible, which is sort of unusual, or on a private side plan, usually your copay goes toward the deductible.
But you don't have a $2,000 to $3,000
Sure you
cap.
do.
Not
the
on
private
GIC,
side.
you don't.
With-
Not GIC.
Oh, no, right, GIC,
Yeah.
you'll be paying copays for the
Correct.
whole year, even if you blew through your deductible. So
Right.
you have your deductible, you have your copay. You may meet your deductible, but your copays will live the whole year long.
Right.
So again, that's not what we're looking at from a deductible end. It would only be for pharmaceuticals only, and then adding in co-payments for various services, for hospitalizations, outpatient surgery, things like that.
In essence, you're basically just saying what you said before, we cannot continue to draw down on our reserves.
Right.
And we have to find a mechanism to pay for it, to
Right.
compensate
There's a
that.
couple levers, there's really, literally only a couple levers. One of the levers is, you know, you keep having 10% premium increases until the marketplace sort of stabilizes. Or do you make some changes to your benefits? And if you make changes to your benefits, you look at the last page of the handout I have for you. Column 3 is the changes that we're talking about, specifically in regards to co-payments in the pharmaceutical deductible. And you see a couple near the bottom, some factors in there, the .951 and the .989, where if you apply that to our claim experience, it comes out to about 94%. So there'd be about a 6% savings claim experience, and that equates to about $3.9 million. So if we made those kind of changes to our plan next year, we could see almost $4 million, a little under $4 million worth of savings overall. So again, that's one of the plans that we're looking at and have talked about seriously, and we'll land on either the July or the October IAC meeting.
So regardless of how we decide this evening and what we decide, nothing is done until we bargain it out one way or the other. We're just exploring
Right.
options that are available and what the cost savings could be should that be adopted.
Right, and as David said, 21 and 22 is just, based on the law, it's just the procedural steps that need to take place. And it's, it's the state law.
And it's up for another discussion. I thought in our contracts is just that we would have insurance for the members of the unions, and they would just follow suit to what we have offered. And we do have a menu plan for them to choose from. So it's not like they have just one plan to choose from, correct?
Meaning like HMO, PPO.
HMO, Health New England, do you have?
Both are Blue Cross, but there is.
Right.
But again, each unit that we have is different, where we have some units that refuse to offer the PPO because of the cost, where the PPO is more expensive, and the municipal group does not want to offer it because of the cost.
But again, that would be.
Right, and again, not knowing what your contract language says, that's, I can't comment on that, just because.
Is that correct, David? We couldn't make that change without engaging the unions.
I think you have to notify them, but I think we can make the change.
Not necessarily,
Okay.
but I think so, and we weren't even sure whether we need to go through the notification at this level because of what's in the contracts, is more general than that. But through David's discussions with town council, this was really the way that it was recommended that we go. So I don't know whether this would apply at other levels or not, because within the town, I understand the town has made those decisions as to what it will offer, and the contracts say what percentage they will.
Correct.
That's what I'm remembering, is the percentage.
Correct.
That's
The percentage
right.
doesn't impact
Affect.
Doesn't
what we're
impact you.
talking about here.
Right.
No.
Right, and that's how the pie
Right.
gets split, but the total cost of the programs are really between the municipal government and the trust.
Right.
Okay, right, okay. Does that make sense to everybody?
It does.
Okay.
Because the individuals pick their programs, and depending on what program they pick, will pay a little more or a little bit less, anyway.
Right. So, I know we have a representative, are you representing?
The HEA,
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
yes.
So we have a representative from the Hadley Educators Association here tonight. So Ruth Ann, did you have comment or questions?
They asked me to ask 3 questions.
Okay.
So, assuming that you do adopt the provisions, what's your timeline about making a decision about health coverage changes?
We would say no later than October, we would know exactly what the changes are.
Okay.
The next set of IAC meetings, there's one in July and one in October.
Okay.
So it could be voted on as early as July, but no later than October.
No later than October, okay. At what point in the exploration and decision-making process do you expect, I know you had mentioned you'd involve the unions, the bargaining unions in town, to discuss the options available?
Well, David wouldn't be able to do that until we land on what our changes would be. So then really the ball bounces back into the town's court to then start talking
Okay,
to the
so once
groups.
that's.
After October.
Well, let's say if we vote in October,
That's
then the clock starts ticking, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so after October.
After October, yeah.
And then the last question is, would the HEA be correct in assuming that the bargaining around health insurance would involve not just the review of potential health plans, but also the cost involved for the employees and the town?
The split, the
Yes,
percentage
yeah.
split between employer and employee.
Right? That's part of the,
Yeah.
I would say so, but I'm just saying.
You're
that I
talking about
don't
the
think
65-35
I don't
split?
think the percentage is gonna change. I just think that the plan,
Well, but I think we don't know that is the point. We don't know that is the point.
Participation of subscriber
Theoretically,
in
we could
town.
bring that to the table.
well,
We don't.
For retirees,
Okay.
for 65-35 for actives.
But just to, again, just want to be clear, I mean, and we're not talking about intent tonight, we're just talking about what could be at the table, right?
Right.
So what could be at the table is right now, the town picks up 65%,
65-35, yeah.
and 35%
And that was
goes,
voted at
Hang-
town meeting, correct?
No,
well-
that's a select board vote.
that's, yeah, it's a select, but
Are you sure?
wasn't that also, is that also something that goes to the bargaining table is the question?
I don't think the split goes to the bargaining
Okay.
table. I think that's something that's entirely with the select board, but the plan design does. So any discussion about deductibles or co-pays,
Okay, no, I just wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
Ruth Ann can go back.
They said, so they're just saying it doesn't.
No,
Okay.
the menu plan would go to the, we call it a cafeteria plan, would go to the HEA.
Okay.
yeah, this is all kind of new for all of us, so,
Okay.
so we're all doing the research at the same time.
Okay.
If you find a different answer, by all means,
Okay, thank
get
you.
in touch with me.
David's absolutely 100% correct, because at our April meeting, we sent off everybody marching to get 21, 22 approved, and then as people started doing more research, we started getting the answers back, saying, we're not adopting it because, and they would give their reasons. And we were just led to believe that most municipalities just follow the 21, 22 law.
And actually, we've done that by notifying the unions
Right,
so
so far,
far.
so far.
So are we here tonight to adopt this, to do the 21, 22?
Mhm.
So I'll make a motion to adopt right now, since we have moved in that direction, to,
No, go ahead, go ahead.
to move along to the 21, 22 MGLs.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. I know Terry from the Finance Committee, did you?
Well, you answered one of the questions, was the percentage breakdown. And so the other question is, can you just tell me what a single-family plan costs
Do you have a copy?
versus a
That's an extra
family?
copy.
I don't have a copy.
No, I don't have the pricing, oh, no, well, I have an extra copy of this, but with, off the top of my head, I know an HMO, single family, 590, 612, something like that.
Okay,
Do you
or-
have them? Actually, you may have.
I do have them currently.
Oh, she does.
Okay, individual plan, do you want the total or just the employee?
Just the total over
The
the year.
total of an individual plan under Network Blue, which is our lowest,
Yeah.
is $604.84 per month. A two-tier is $1,408.50.
And two-tier is an employee plus one.
A family plan under, and these are the HMO,
Yep.
is $1,746.28.
Mhm.
And under the PPO, an individual is $706.52, and a family plan is $1,935.20. These are the monthly premiums.
Okay, thank you.
For the 65-30 split.
Yep.
Right, the total.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have a motion made and seconded. Is there further discussion?
Yeah, a little bit. The only thing I want to say is, and I think Joe can reemphasize this, that the trust is an independent body and it isn't affected by the COG. So whatever transpires in the COG in the future does not affect the trust because they're an independent body. So
That's correct.
if the COG goes belly up at some date, the trust will operate on its own initiative and continue and serve the 89 communities that you
If you
serve.
look at the organizational chart, I report into an executive committee of the trust, which then goes into the IAC of the trust. Then there's a dotted line to the executive committee or the full board of the Hampshire Council of Governments. And the way the charter was written, if the Council of Governments were to disband or go away, the Insurance Advisory Committee of the trust would then become the trustee. So the trustee right now is the Council of Governments, but again, if that goes away, the trustee responsibility goes to the IAC of the trust. And there's a firewall, they can't touch our money, where again, financially, our accounts are the trust accounts, and they're not associated with the Council of Governments.
Okay, motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
John, are you abstaining, or?
No, you're a union member, aren't you?
I am, but this is on the high side.
Yeah, I don't see a problem.
Yeah.
Great.
All right, so that was unanimous then to adopt. Okay, and so messages, obviously, we will do everything we can through David to stay in close conversation with all of the unions, as well as the whole workforce for that matter, but making sure that people are kept abreast of discussions. Again, no.
And if
Okay.
you have any further questions, please bring them to us. You know, we want to work with everybody. We wish we didn't have to talk about things like this, but it is what it is.
Okay,
Great.
all right, thanks so much for coming.
Thanks for the update.
Thank
Yep.
you. Thank you, John and Linda.
Okay, so our 7:30 appointment is a little late, but, okay. So tonight we have a 7:30 appointment with the Park and Rec Commission. So this is kind of a follow-up to previous discussions that we've been having. So do you want to provide an update, or where should we start?
Well, I think the first thing I wanted to point out, our interim is with us. This is Melissa Eloise. And all of the sisters. All of the feedback so far has been positive, in that she has hit the ground running to keep the department abreast of everything, passwords, all the transitional type things that would be needed with Kathy's departure. So we've been pleased and met before this and are happy with the updates so far.
So again, message in terms of anybody in the community watching.
Right.
There's no programming that people may have been planning on that's going off because of, so everything's, all systems go.
As a matter of fact, you guys just posted earlier in the day about the summer programming on our Facebook page.
And the website.
Right.
And the flyers went out to the school.
Okay.
Both
So,
schools.
so we have little last minute updates for everyone with that, but everyone who signed up for the program is aware of
Yes.
locations and everything like that. We are here, I think, at David's request and your request, Molly, from about a month ago regarding the position, I believe.
Yeah, so talking about, one of the things as a select board we talked about was, again, if in fact we have any turnover, through natural attrition, that may be a good opportunity to just stop and take a look at that part of the organization and say, does it make sense to continue the way we're going? You have one employee who's 30 hours a week, 30 hours a week at a certain pay scale. Does it make sense to take a look at that job and rethink, is there any opportunity to get that work done more efficiently through collaboration with other town departments, et cetera? And the Parking and Rec Commission has always been kind of this one-off to the side where, we have a department heads that come in and we have a department head meeting, and Kathy's been participating in that. But not that the reporting structure elsewhere in town is that clear, but this is a little bit more convoluted because we have a Park and Rec Commission that by Mass General Law was really allowed to be created, and it's up to any town to adopt it, to be the oversight authority over parks. And it's really kind of silent as to programming, so I think that over time in Hadley, the Park and Rec Commission kind of took on additional responsibilities that included more of the recreational aspects of it. And then we've had a lot of conversation about, what capital needs are there in terms of space considerations, et cetera. The programming at Park and Rec has changed over the years. It used to be more heavily focused on sports programming or athletic programming. There's been a move away from that. So I think, in my mind, there've just been so many changes. I wanted to at least have the conversation. Does it make sense for us to continue the way we're structured currently? Is there any opportunity to look at potential efficiencies or cost savings with this transition right now? Really, it's more of a planning conversation more than anything. And I had asked David to kind of take a look at the language around the Park and Rec Commission as well. And David, you want to add anything to what I just said? Or?
Yeah, so it's clear that by law, the Park Commission has broad authority within parks. But we don't have much in the way of parks here. Then there's the programming which extends far beyond park space. So I think looking over the case law, that within the park boundaries is pretty clear. The Park and Rec Commission has broad authority, but any time you're not inside of a park, then that authority becomes a lot more diffuse, and I think the select board would have more control over, say, hiring a department head for the Park and Rec Commission, whereas the Park and Rec Commission can direct how the park is landscaped or policed, or the coaches for the programs that take place within there. So it's kind of a power sharing agreement that we've never really talked through, and I guess this is an opportunity to do that.
And I think the other thing too is that I'm looking at other departments coming through here. We have the senior center, for example, has a program coordinator. So they've hired somebody who handles programming for the seniors. The library has actually dramatically accelerated the programming that they're offering, and not just youth programming, but also for adults as well. So there are all these programs that are occurring at the library too. So again, I'm sitting, and it's really not personal. It's just I'm sitting here at this table thinking, we've got programming going on in Council of Aging. We've got programming going on in the Parks Department. We have programming going on in the library. Is there a more efficient way to handle all of that? Now, mind you, no discussion has happened with the Council on Aging or the libraries about this either, but is now the time to have a discussion, because everybody up here said that, we wanted to, again, as opportunity presents itself, look at some of these functions and see if there's a more efficient, more cost-effective way to deliver at least the same quality, if not even better quality service to the town.
Well, and I think that when we look at all the boards, I think you are the elected officials, you have the right to run your program the way that you see fit, but again, you still follow, as all of us do, follow the same policies and procedures that the rest of the town follows. Whether it be the wage scale, the policies and procedures, the personal time, all of that really comes under that same umbrella. And so I think we all just want to be on the same page with that too. I think that's
Yeah,
what.
I think the perfect solution would be to have all those other department programmers come under Park and Rec and have it be a wonderful leisure services department with a leisure services director. I mean, I think we have capable people. Andy, Marianne, and myself are personally invested. Marianne and I have been the majority, and I think I can say it on the record, of Kathy's helps at the Easter function, the Christmas function, the Halloween function. We're all invested in this and have a great deal, with our kids helping and participating in this program. With our Girl Scouts troops expanding that number as well. So we're at the ages where our kids are that. I know a lot of your children are already past that age, so may not be in the forefront of your mind. Right?
Us old folks.
Wasn't saying that. But yeah, I mean, I saw, a library thing posted today for some type of activities coordinator, and that's something that
A youth coordinator.
a youth coordinator.
That's actually
So-
a teen
Right.
library. There's actually a librarian function as well.
Oh.
too. So
I didn't
I
see
did
that
ask
part
about
of it, but
Yep.
yeah, I mean, we'd love to take on more. I think that what's happening is we're restricted with our space. We were moved to the senior center. We've lost the ability to do some of our programs and are now under budgeting constraints of looking at spaces that are gonna charge us crazy costs. So we'd love to do more. We'd love to take on more. I mean,
Yeah, I mean.
Terry, you had, sorry.
I was going to
Go
say,
ahead.
just to add on to the space history, is for those who may or may not recall, that, we did have a fairly broad spectrum of programs that we were able to run out of North Hadley Hall until we ran into some egress and concerns with the condition of the building. So the size of assemblies were limited, significantly limited. So that cut back in a fair amount of our product offerings. How many kids could we put upstairs in that building? And then of course, a couple of years ago, when we were starting to look to rent space, we were hoping to maybe divert the funds ultimately from North Hadley Hall that were being used to support the park and rec programs, the oil and maintenance fees, and just no additional cost to taxpayers, to take that money and move that into renting programming space. And we got a lot of positive affirmation here, but when it came budget time, that didn't occur. So we were looking to negotiate to find adequate space, and now we're in a position where we're scrambling to find space that's available. We do have some money, we do have some space. It is, but we're in a position where we've lost a lot of our programming space. And I want to say that this is a continued discussion about resources. It's been a retraction of resources, or at least from our perspective. So we're doing what we can with what we have, and we want to get creative and expand that envelope.
Well, then, the other side of that, again, the other end of the spectrum is we've got Massachusetts law that allows for the creation of a Parks Commission that really doesn't have a whole lot to do with that programming. And then we have other people handling programming for youth and seniors and adults in between who've been growing those programs over the same time. And both of those groups they haven't definitively secured space, but they are also have building projects underway where so then, you can go the other side of it, say, does it make sense to centralize that with a park group and have this whole separate commission? Or would it make more sense to take the programming remaining that's being handled by the Park and Rec Department and absorb that elsewhere into the town and maybe have a programming coordinator? No offense, we're trying to look to reduce costs where possible, not necessarily, increase the scope, but not have the opportunity to reduce it elsewhere. So again, I just want to, again, I'm only speaking for myself, but I think it's time to look at the whole thing. And Terry, you wanted to, sorry.
So for several months now, I've been talking about shared services, not just Park and Rec, but with fire and police. We talked to Chief Spank Nabel about it and so forth. And I think, we're trying to look just across the board, just not at Park and Rec or one particular person or employee or so forth, but we set examples too in each department, and other departments look at to see what we're doing as far as spending money and who gets what and pay scales and so forth. What I would like to see is, because of the coordinator thing that we have in front of us with 3 departments looking for basically the same type of person, I'd like to see the select board form a committee of maybe somebody from the select board, somebody from finance, somebody from the library, and so forth, and get together, or outside people that have been active in Park and Rec or the library and so forth, and kind of just get together and look to see what would be best moving forward and not looking behind, because I used to be a Park and Rec commissioner and I volunteered a lot. We had sports, we had tons of kids in all sports. It's not that anymore. You know as well as I do, Molly, you've sit on many boards with me, sport activities elsewhere.
I did, didn't I?
I know. And I just think that things have turned the table, and I think it's great that we're able to offer other services for those kids that don't want to play sports, or the ones that do play sports but maybe want to learn chess, or my son did sewing lessons, and so things have changed. We don't have North Hadley Hall anymore. We don't have that field there for kids to be able to use, which is a cost savings. And looking at the financial part of it is, as a town, we're looking to see where we can save money and gain money for many things that need to be done in this town. So to me, that's looking at every department, not just one department, and the overall picture of everything. So I just think, but moving forward, to be able to get things accomplished, I think that we need to look at everything that we can. And since there is a point where Kathy's leaving and we have an interim person coming in, this would be a great opportunity to look at this department. Just like when it was DPW and Marlo came on, we got fresh eyes there and ears there, and it was brought up about looking at that department. What can we do to save money? Where, what can we do to bring money in? And so that's where I'm kind of going with it. You know, we all want the same thing. We don't want, you know, we want it to be successful programs for the children, the elderly, however we get there. If it's joint services, you know, I think it needs to be done and looked at. So I'm kind of looking at, well, how can we do this? Do we create a board, you know, or committee overseen by the select board and give it some time before we make this huge decision?
Mary Ann? Sorry. We'll just kind of go off what she said and what Diane said. So form the committee to try and just form basically a leisure service, not multiple services, just one leisure service group that provides services for all.
Not necessarily leisure services, but
Or some type of new group.
let's just see what each department can offer, what it can bring to the table, and what we can do with those things.
I think so, yeah.
I'd like to weigh in a little bit, and the first thing I'd like to say is that for generations, this board has been far more than overseeing the parks. That this board has been Parks and Rec. So that, I think to talk about it different tonight, I don't necessarily think that's fair. It's been Parks and Recs for a long time. What it was originally posted for was one thing. We've grown and evolved into what you guys are today. So, and I don't think it's running parks. I think it has a lot more to do with the recreation aspect of it than the parks.
Yeah, they were part of the Commons at one time. They were part of there was Reservoir Conversations way back when to put some type of park
Yeah,
up
the
there.
reservoir, I remember.
I mean, this is over the last 30 years, and there was a lot
Also
of,
volunteer too.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And they ran the
We'll
department.
be volunteers, it's basically volunteers.
It's what you are now. It's what you are now. And it's,
We'll be volunteers.
my point,
Against you, I'm just saying.
No, I know.
They
It wasn't
put
saying
tons of hours
Exactly.
in. Joanne was even volunteer. You know, I just think that things have changed a little bit. You can make the decision tonight, and especially.
things have changed a lot. We don't have a soccer department that's individual. We have basketball that's individual. We have baseball that's
But we have 'em.
individual.
But we have 'em.
But we have stuff as well locally, but it's not the majority of what we used to consider
Right.
park and recreation
Right.
to be.
Well,
Now
we
there's a
don't
whole
have
lot of
Little League.
diversion
We
of
don't
other
have Little
things.
League.
Huh?
We don't
But
have Little
Park and Rec
League.
has never had Little League.
Well, we have.
It's
Park
never
and Rec
had,
didn't-
never had
No,
last
I mean,
league.
it's
There's really
not-
been.
nothing is there
there's been
anymore
one-
that
one
was
cho-
there.
choice,
Yeah.
one change,
Those
and
can
it
come
hasn't
back
been
if
100%.
there's
space.
So,
See,
That's the point.
that's the
it was
point.
before Cal Ripken, it was Hadley Youth Baseball, which was part of
Right.
Cal Ripken out of Frontier.
Madam Chair.
And what's the
You know,
Yeah, we
I
have
have
that.
no,
Yeah.
absolutely no interest in micromanaging the Park and Rec department. First of all, they're elected officials and they do a wonderful job. They present their budget every year to the finance committee. It's the finance committee to check on all these other departments, make sure there is no duplication. If there is, correct it, you know, and they've done a wonderful job. I don't think we should be, you know,
We can't handle what we're doing now. We don't need
Exactly.
another
you know,
department
they
to
do a
take
good
over.
job. And it'll solve itself. If they need extra money, you know, they put it in their budget for new programs or whatever. If it gets approved by the town meeting,
One thing we have is the timeline, and we have, it's been pointed out by David that the interim position is a 12-week position. Meanwhile, we know that things don't happen as quickly as we'd like to, going through public policy. So what we're already looking at fall and winter programs, because we're usually booking 6 months out. And if our interim position is gonna end in October. Yeah, how are we gonna plan to go forward? Last I knew, we were in the budget for at least the entire fiscal year for that position, and which was approved. Yeah. How are we gonna?
Why is it just, Aaron? Why did you just do it interim now? What
Because
made-
we had.
we told her to.
We were guided,
We
remember I
told
came
them
back,
to.
it's all
Well, that
recorded.
was stupid of us, wasn't it?
No, I don't think it was.
But you did say get ready to
Yeah,
go
so-
and hit the ground to get a new one, so that's.
I think
where-
we're trying to understand where you guys are going with the future, because your space is now limited. Where's Park and Rec going? What are we doing with it? What is your vision of the future? What's it gonna look like? Whomever's there.
Right.
We're looking, I think, to you. Tell us where you're going, what it's gonna cost, and how we're gonna get there. What your shortcomings are. It's fields, it's this, it's that. No space for recreation. So that we can begin to understand the programs in the future and understand how big, how small, how medium size is Park and Rec gonna be.
I think, like, you know, we couldn't answer the thing about changing Park and Rec under the big picture today. I can't tell you
Yeah.
what the costs of
True,
things are gonna be.
true.
But I can tell you that Melissa and Kathy have
finished stuff right now, are already planning our soccer stuff for the fall. Melissa was talking about some programs, like bouncing them off of Kathy, because we're always trying to get in new program ideas. Kenny had some that we tried with Kathy for a while, so we're open to them, and I think we're trying some things we've talked about through social media where we're gonna try and get more input for things. Yet on the flip side, I know in the last 21 hours of work that Melissa has done, signing the time cards, asking what's up, we've looked at local facilities that we may have to consider using that could be okay cost-wise and low cost compared to what we've been seeing. And we've also looked at some that might be way out of what we would want to consider. So we're trying to narrow down that scope and look at availability based on what we're finding as things progress, for example, with the mall, and maybe exiting that opportunity.
See, I have no problem incorporating Terry's suggestion that we look at opportunities for joint services with that. And I really would like to wait and get the information from Park and Rec based on the facilities they have and the opportunities there in the future to understand what the program's gonna look like in the future. As Chairman, as Ms. Chungalo has says, we have the budget numbers set. It was a Freudian slip, sorry. The budget has been set, it's been established, and we, as a town, voted for your budget.
Right.
So your budget is what it is. We need to talk in the future to go forward as to whatever position is gonna be and what it's gonna be. And you need to provide us with information as to how that's gonna grow itself and weigh itself out, is what I personally would like. To Donald's point, they're elected officials, do your job.
I guess I'd like to further elaborate. They're no different than any other budget we're talking. We know we have a serious problem for 219, and this is why we started right after town meeting. I commend the finance committee. They're really aggressive, and they're putting a lot of hours in, and this is the best I felt about budget process in over a year. Our chairman has taken the initiative to look at all these positions and rate them and everything. We're doing that. We're trying to get on top of everything really early so the taxpayers know what's happening for 219. And this is part of the process of what you're gonna do for 219 and how do you rectify it,
So one thing I just want to add, be clear about whatever. And again, we're all friends and neighbors and we see each other and so again, truly not personal, and I hope nobody feels that way. When you're sitting on the receiving end of it, of course it can feel that way. But the only thing I would take exception, Donald, is of course they're elected officials, and they're elected officials created by vote of town meeting and Mass General Law back in 1964. And to Jerry's point, I was actually surprised when David did the research and pulled it up and said that the general law is really, it's a parks department. And then I thought about Northampton and where I grew up and stuff like that, and like, oh yeah, okay. I see how these things evolve in municipalities. And I'm sure that there were rock solid, excellent people like yourselves who ran for public office over the years, and because of people doing a good job, more and more was probably given out. But also going to Terry's point, and what Jerry said as well, times change, things change, and we are at a point now where, and I don't want to refer to you guys as a luxury, you're not a luxury, again, you've been working very hard and doing a fantastic job, but I think as elected officials ourselves, with the purview over presenting a long-range plan to town meeting and knowing what else we have to nickel and dime and find a way to fund, everything has to be running as efficiently as possible. We have to be able to look at the taxpayers and say, we looked at it, we looked at this side, we looked at that side. And so I agree with Terry's point. I think it behooves us to really take a look at one extreme end of the spectrum, which is maybe we decide that the Park and Rec Commission, as we've known it, is no longer necessary. However, the function needs to be performed, and somehow we figure out who is best to do that and who they report to. The other side of it being what Diane suggested is maybe the best solution is to take all of the programming and look at it as more of a leisure services. But what does that mean? Because we also have people functioning in those jobs. And again, I'm a fan of natural attrition, not putting ourselves in a position to really lay anybody off or eliminate a position. So, yeah, I would support going forward and at least doing the analysis so we can stand up in front of town meeting if and when the questions are asked. And they will be asked, and quite frankly, they're already being asked because the taxpayers know and can smell that we're going to be looking for revenue based on everything that we've been talking about. And so they want to make sure any opportunity doesn't slip by.
Well,
So-
likewise, a lot of the taxpayers need to be reminded about their children, the seniors and a lot of the library patrons, you know, are voting people. We are the demographics of when we did up the little spreadsheet for you, you know, we have a lot of kids that we're serving, and we need to remember that we're trying to culminate this for the kids of the town. Obviously, again, Kenny brought up cribbage a couple years ago. We did that, bought new cribbage boards and did all that. So we're willing to
Don't take pitch
address all
night
different
away.
areas.
No pitch night.
Yeah, I know. Well, that'd be a good
For
thing
us
to take on,
kids.
yeah.
Yeah, but
I'd be there.
Cribbage is something that seniors like to do too.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that's why we did it,
Absolutely.
and I believe Kenny was trying to broaden that, so I'm saying, in horseshoes, so we're. Bocce, so we're trying
Now you
to
can do
broaden
the
it.
cornhole.
Oh, yeah, got it all, no, so.
Jane?
So what is the age of the population Park and Rec's currently is serving?
Do you wanna address that, Kathy? I mean.
Well, we basically serve
Preschool,
K,
six? Preschool.
yeah, preschool through sixth.
And
That
what-
is our massive
And what
amount
is that number?
per
How many?
activity.
How many
Oh.
in the overall population of the town?
Oh, how many
But
do
it's
we
not
have?
just the
It's
town.
300 and some.
Yeah. There are also some draw from out of
They're
And then
actually a
there's a lot
larger
from-
percentage that
We're
come
sort of a
through.
throughway, and our summer programs are from actually a lot of out of town children going, parents going to UMass and so forth. So we have a program at the Methodist Church. It's almost full because that's a throughway to UMass, and it's not all Hadley kids. So that's the first time we've used that building. But
I thought on that spreadsheet that we gave in, gosh, it must have been about a year
Yeah, I
ago, it
still
was
have
like
that somewhere.
up to like, I thought 1,003rd, wasn't that the way you calculated?
yeah, how many are in town? Oh, that was
Yeah.
your question,
Yes.
right?
Or how many in
Yeah.
town, yeah, probably.
Well, I mean, we have people at the senior center who are
Repeat.
not Hadley residents.
Right,
Right.
right,
And I know some senior centers charge, not us, but some, Amherst and Northampton, charge more for out-of-towners using
Yeah,
their
that's-
programs. Do you do that?
Well,
We had done that. The reality is that we have kids from out of town at our schools, so it's kind of like, even if you go
Yeah,
school of
they
choice,
attend the
so
school.
you get to do an after-school program because you're in Hadley Elementary and you're doing
Yeah,
an
those are our
after-school
kids.
program and then,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but they're actually technically out of town, so do you charge, you know, so it's like, it got a little dicey, but
Yeah,
you
it
can
is.
come up with another plan. It's just, that's why we stopped doing
Yeah.
that. It's different.
So I'm sorry, I forgot what the number was.
I think it's what is it, 25 times 13 plus preschool, 6.
So what percent of those kids
325.
actually?
Thank you.
Okay,
That's
thank
what I
you.
thought I said. Yeah, I thought I said 325.
325.
And then at preschool's probably like 60.
But that is a good point too. That's very,
Plus
but
we have
that's something to be taken into
two
account
adult
too.
programs.
I think that is important, you know, there's Northampton
Be a
Leisure
service
Services
from-
that, or
Right.
Northampton Park and Rec that Hadley
You
kids go
service
to.
from
Yep.
Amherst
Exactly.
Leisure Services that
preschool
Hadley
all
kids
the
go
way
to,
to-
and then we're
People are
servicing
16
out of town too, so.
Right.
Zumba and
Question is,
everything else.
where's the cost? Yeah.
Madam Chair.
So, yes, sir.
You know, I really feel like they're here for one reason and now they're being singled out for something completely different. So it leads me to ask a question, is the library a luxury? Do we need a new library? Look at the amount of money that's gonna cost. Do we need that? Is it a luxury?
That was already
Taxpayers will
voted
tell
on.
us.
You know, so I know.
The
but
taxpayers will tell
This
us.
is where we're going and I don't think it's fair to them at all.
Terry?
I don't think anybody's here to say there should be no park and rec. Because by far, I'm here to support them. What I'm trying to say is, can we utilize these services throughout our town and make it better?
And I don't
That's
have a
what I'm
problem with
saying.
that, Terry, and I think the finance committee can do that. Join them all together, find out if there's duplication, you know? If there's duplication,
and that's what
eliminate
I'm
it.
asking.
Very simple. I don't think we have to have a committee to do this.
Finances, I'll ask it to the
No,
finance.
I'm not yelling, I just have a loud voice. You want me to really yell?
No.
So all
So
I'm
Terry,
asking
yes.
is if the select board could agree about making a committee or whatever of a group of people to just get together and look at overview of all these departments, and is there any way we can do shared services and save some money somewhere, or make more money?
Or make more money, that's right.
That's
You can increase
right, or
revenue,
make
too.
more money when you have more people together and putting a lot of all their knowledge together. It's not gonna hurt anybody to do it.
Yeah, this isn't a new discussion. We've known that the North Hadley Hall has been sold since
For a
the
while.
taxpayers
Voted on.
claimed to do that. So the reality is that I think that and I just wanted to recall that we do have a park right now, and we haven't had one for a long time, so we have an exciting
That's on the
active
agenda,
park.
too.
Yeah, it is. So I just wanted, I knew it is, but if we're talking about park commissions, there could be some other different role for them. But finally, there is a park that's really exciting, and they could do that and come together with other terms for the recreation as well. But it's not faulting it. There really is a park now,
Missy, do you want to say
Yeah, I'd like
something?
to follow that up. I was just going to say that.
Oh.
Is that I fully support what Terry is saying, but I would like Park and Rec to have the opportunity to come back and present what is the long-term vision of us, because we do have an exciting park. And I would like the opportunity to try to work with the library and work with the senior center on our own as part of this position. I think it behooves us to try to work it out ourselves and see, we don't want to have two Easter bunnies in town.
I'm excited
That
to
has
hear you
been-
using the
we've
Methodist
been
Church.
asked to use
You know,
our costumes
and I
by
think
other
that,
departments.
we have great relationships that we can, I'd like the opportunity for us to work it out first among ourselves and come back with that long-term vision. And then at that time, say,
How best to deliver.
How does this fold in?
Yeah.
because in those discussions, some of those joint things can be discussed, and that's kind of one of the things when I saw that job position for the librarian, I'm like, well, I want to make sure we're not overstepping each other's toes, and we are utilizing resources, and what space do you have available that we could use, and vice versa. So I think that all our hearts are in the right place, but I would just ask that we were given the opportunity to do that on our own as part of the position we already have first.
First, yeah.
Yeah.
And then maybe just to table that till after we've had that presentation is my.
What's the relationship
request.
with the Methodist Church? What's the availability or the?
Well, Kathy made that.
It was just
she
a
can tell
space
you.
that, when we had originally talked about the mall, because we're gonna do a sort of
Yeah,
barter
yeah.
system with so when I had originally talked about that, they didn't feel comfortable being there because there's
Who didn't?
the Mad Science program that we've been working with probably for 10 years. So they didn't feel comfortable about sending their kids to a dark hallway down a public hall to a public bathroom. So I said, here are some other places in town. They called the Methodist Church. The Methodist Church rented a space to them.
So we're
And
using
so
it.
our program has space at the Methodist Church.
We're using it.
And Missy's looked at the Most Holy Redeemer and the
First
Congregational Church here for other spaces. But those are, nothing is autonomous anymore. Neither are our fields. So
Neither
that
are
is
schools.
that's the real fact that's changed dramatically.
Right, everything's brokered, including the facilities.
Exactly.
Yep.
So there's no, office space, that. So that is a big story to Park and Rec. It's change regardless of the people or persons in any position.
And there are other spaces in town that, in the past, the common was kind of wasn't open for events. And we, the Park Commission would like to roll that in as an area that we're able to run more events on and control the traffic on, and sponsor more events on, as well as the reservoir. Kenny was a big advocate of trying to get the reservoir under the fold. We don't even issue the permits to go see that for whatever reason, and that's perhaps something as one of these anachronisms that has been there for a while that may need to be reviewed. Another open space which may or may not still be around is the North Hadley Field. I know that's all on hold, but that hasn't, there's still there. So there are other spaces in town.
We do need bathrooms and
Okay. And one thing I
safe
just feel
shelter.
compelled to be clear about, just in case anybody from the library or the Council on Aging is watching tonight. Yeah, this is a discussion. It's a discussion, and, you know, it's, again, it's inviting a cooperative, collaborative conversation, to use everybody's favorite words. But that's what we're talking about right now, is we're talking about a conversation. Terry, you want to?
No.
Okay.
I support what Melissa offered, and let's just go with that right now. And
Go for that, and then
that would-
put it
that
on an
would give
agenda
time to
before 12 weeks is
have
up,
a
obviously.
further discussion.
We'll bring that up.
Yeah.
Once you guys vote, because we're ready
Okay.
to talk about.
Okay. So the idea then would be to have Melissa and probably have you be the point person then on coordinating a conversation across the other town departments with other programming, and then come back with the commissioners with more of what Jerry's referring to as kind of the vision for this programming. And then we'll be wrapping that back into Finance Committee's recommendation as well.
I think it'll go hand in hand, and that'll give more information, like Jerry was saying, for all of us.
And do you plan on going out and hiring a full-time?
Well, I think that's what Melissa was aiming at with Joyce putting the motion out there.
No,
is
I'm asking the board.
Yes, we actually came here tonight with the understanding that there was a question of us from the select board, but we have the job description, and I think I keep saying to you, Joyce, but I remember you saying, it's your baby, go with it. Maybe you didn't say it's our baby, but, you know.
But the town has hiring practices
Yeah.
that need to be followed.
Right, like
Yeah.
you said, right.
Okay.
So, and
Posting and
for everything that
advertising.
we've done, David and I, having a human resources management background, I put stuff in emails and I put stuff in writing between David and I, so that's why I email a lot, David. So having 15 years human resources experience, I think that I've tried to, for the first time, getting at least an interim, follow the directives, working with Joan on that. So, yeah, and now that was what we were coming here to clarify from the Park and Rec Commissioner end is, we're ready to post it, we're ready to put it on the board down there. We just want to know the timing and stuff, because I haven't done that here with the town level.
David, you want to say something?
So as a department head, ultimately it's your hire. It gets posted, it gets advertised, we put it on the website, we give people an opportunity to submit their applications.
Right.
But you may have to bob and weave depending on the information that comes back. That comes back from you. What's the job description? We have what you're looking for today. When you come back and everybody talks about where we're going and what's available, we need to determine, it may change.
Right, but that's my concern, because we post for the sake of argument, I don't know, is it a 30-hour job or more?
Kathy's replacement, same.
So same. So you're posting a 30-hour job that's with benefits within a certain pay scale. People in good faith apply for this, and then we have a subsequent discussion in fairly short order that may lead us in a different direction. And I mean, that's going to be
I
tough.
see the library job description, and I'm not sure, Kathy had mentioned the senior centered hiring and activities person, but I know Kathy was helping out Suzanne with a lot of the programming.
Well,
Well,
no,
you did the
I
bus
just-
trips, 15 bus
but
trips.
I only did that and gave it right back.
Yeah, and she handed it back. So what I'm saying is a lot of that stuff is stuff that Park and Rec has administratively started on or done. So I don't see the scope going too much further beyond
But
things that we've had in our.
You're hiring in two different departments, and you're saying we shouldn't proceed in ours at this time, even though we're in the.
Yeah, I don't
the
think we
budget
should
for the
hold
year.
it up.
Because it's.
Then she's out of the 12 weeks, and then we're stuck with us three who have full-time or over full-time jobs.
The problem you run into, and again, I know private industry, we can't even contemplate comparing the two, but the reality is in another organization, again, there's natural attrition, and natural attrition by its very nature implies unpredictability. People get sick, they die, they quit. Whatever. Or they get promoted into another job. So it creates a void within that organization. And at that point in time, management takes a look and says, okay, what do we do now? The alternative to natural attrition is forced personnel changes. And I think that in town here, we have a long-standing history of not going there. And to the point being made tonight, that doesn't presume that we're looking at staff reductions either, because we haven't talked about that at all. But if there's an opportunity to do something differently and more efficiently, now is the time to do it. As soon as that person gets hired, they become a fixed cost to this town, because we're not going to turn around and lay them off. I mean, I shouldn't say never, but I mean that would certainly not be what we would want to do. So I certainly respect where you guys are coming from, because it's like you're trying to figure out a way to get this programming in place because it matters. But nor do I feel comfortable pulling the trigger and saying, yeah, just go ahead and let's just assume it's 30 hours a week and off we go, because it happens to be in the budget. And it's not clear that it's 100% under the purview of the Park and Rec Commission, which I think, David, was what you had implied at a previous meeting, but on further research have determined that's really not the case.
This is the department head that would be hired by the select board to work for the Park and Rec Commission.
But we didn't hire Kathy, and we didn't hire Joanne Keller.
And I'm afraid if we wait.
When those
12 weeks
positions
are up.
became available.
Yeah.
The commission hired
Well,
Joanne and Marie.
Exactly.
assistant.
those were different times when we weren't asking the same questions, so, I mean,
But you've already set precedent.
it's very clear to me that you're the hiring and firing authority here. If you want to delegate that authority, that's up to you.
Well, I don't think we were ever involved with their hiring and firing.
Yeah.
Terry?
I just see that, you know, people assume or they see things, you know, pay scale, other departments see employees coming in and the pay scales. I don't know if you guys have a set way of doing that and so forth, but I hear and I see other people questioning how these departments are hiring their new employees and starting off at rates that we have people here that work 10 years and don't even get that rate. And so
Or
you're
retiring.
Right, or so you're causing, so what it causes is issues with other departments. So I think it came about because, you know, other departments are looking at everything and saying, hey, I'm working 50 hours a week, I'm only getting paid 35, there's no money in the budget, but this one's coming in and getting paid this one takes this, you know what I'm saying? So the departments and the employees are talking, and we're trying to set an example across the board to be consistent with everybody.
And I think we have time to do that with the permanent position.
Right.
I absolutely agree with you. Well, I think that there needs to be collaboration between the boards as to what the pay rate schedules and hours are gonna be.
Yes.
Absolutely agree with you, and it should be consistent with the hiring practices for the rest of the town. I still think you guys should hire it. I think we need to work together to
Yes.
determine a schedule
Yes.
and a rate. That would be my suggestion. But I would still, I don't wanna assume the responsibility of hiring
Yeah, not
who
interviewing
you
and all
choose
this.
to hire to run your elected position
Didn't I
department.
say that a little while ago
You
about
did.
us following
And you also
policies
said
and
it about a month ago.
procedures?
That's why we're,
But that's fine, but I think we all need to follow the same guidelines of what the rest of the town is doing too when we do hire somebody.
That's, yeah, we're looking for guidance and we're trying
everyone
to
wasn't.
Right.
get to the bottom.
Of which we weren't privileged
Right.
to. Yeah, so I mean, I think that's all that we're asking for. I certainly don't want to be the one to hire, that's your privilege to do that, and I've said it.
Okay, so everybody on the board's comfortable with them posting a 30-hour-a-week job?
As far as I'm concerned, they are the same as we are. They're one member of their board, and they're responsible, just like we are, for their Park and Rec department. Just like we're responsible, just like the school committee is responsible for the schools.
Okay, no, but again, I'm
I
just.
have no problem with that board at all. I don't know why you want to try to abolish it.
It's not,
We don't want to
It's the
abolish
question
it.
of the wording that has come up, and that's why it's being addressed, in my opinion. If you want to vote to change the wording, so there is no question by anybody, then go ahead and do that.
if we want to charter the Park and Rec Commission and create a mission statement that includes everything that they've been doing, and to be honest with you, if we're going to continue in this vein, we should, because you're just, again, kicking a problem down the road to whoever else just happens to be elected up here. So, you know, if that's the direction that we want to go in, let's clean it up. But right now, it's a mess. And John, I'm also being respectful of all of the times that you said, if I had it my way, I'd put on a hiring freeze. So you're saying something different tonight.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I am absolutely not saying that. The position is needed. And I think everybody stressed a pay scale to look at and a universal pay scale for all the boards. I think we've covered that quite clearly.
Can you extend the 12-week interim thing?
No, that relates to federal law having to do with
I don't
unemployment.
see a problem with us keeping that 12-week schedule at all, with coming back in July, excuse me, presenting the information. To get that, we have to work that out anyway.
Right.
Which we met tonight before this meeting and started. Excuse me. So I don't see that as needing to
I'm
extend
just
it.
trying to
No,
give you
I'm
a
just-
solution.
I hear, I think we're all saying the same thing.
Yeah, and I thought that's where you were going, but again, I'm also respectfully hearing Diane say we need to get this position posted and posted now, but I mean, if
Which is what you're saying. She's
Which is
saying
what
that.
I'm
She's
saying,
saying let's get
in
posted
that
so we
work.
can come back and present to you our candidates, or however, whatever
Well,
it is
you're
we're
talking
at.
about the programming.
Right, that's what we're saying, but
She might lose her job.
I thought you were talking
I
about
believe it goes
programming
hand in
too.
hand. I believe it goes hand in hand, that in our discussions of what our future will determine, like the job description and the needs, and posting that was coming back with the justification.
I mean, I see myself at a point to email David the job description. David reviews it and then approves or disapproves. I don't even know.
Comes back with a recommendation.
Comes back
pay
with a
scale,
recommendation,
numbers.
and then the board says okay, and up it goes.
Meantime,
Now,
you're working on what the programs are gonna be
in the
in the
meantime,
future.
they're doing great.
Excellent.
Yeah,
It's set.
yeah, it's set.
Okay, so is that how everybody wants to proceed?
Yes.
Sounds good. I don't think we need to vote on it, this is a discussion, so, right? Do you want us to vote on it?
Well, I'm still not
What do you want
clear,
to do?
if we come back with a recommendation from there, what's the next step for proceeding with the posting of the position? Is there some kind of decision gate that this board has to vote on before we go ahead, and then if we get approval from David on the job description, can we post the job?
Will he also provide the pay scale?
David.
I think they have to.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
on the description.
Well, I'm just curious how you came up with the $25 figure for the interim hourly rate.
That had nothing to do with
Yeah,
tonight.
that's
Let
an
that go.
interim, yeah.
Let's, that, I would
just wanna
say,
make sure it's consistent across the board.
once
I
that
agree.
gets back and you guys come back with that, we're gonna, again, you guys are elected officials, if you guys tell us that's what you're gonna do, we have a budget, you're in the budget plan at this point in time. If that doesn't come to fruition, we have next budget period to say, we need to trim this and this is why we do.
Okay.
It's my humble opinion, that's what town meeting voted your thing.
I like
To
your-
Molly's point, let's figure this out and figure out where we're going with this so that we can do this the right way and solve a lot of problems. Get the information, the job description to David. David, you take a look at it based on currently our hiring practices within the town, what it's gonna be. We'll get that back to you, and let's go forward with it from there. We have a meeting next week that I'm sure you won't be able to do that by next week. Then we have, what, 2 weeks? Is
Yeah,
2
the
weeks we have
21st
on?
is pretty packed,
Yeah,
so-
but we can't possibly, they
Be
can't
the-
possibly do that in a week.
The
so.
12th, July
No,
12th?
July, right?
July
Come back
12th.
with a new hire, is that what you mean?
No.
No. I'm like, what are you-
No, nay.
Well, it's not next
No,
week.
Your park and rec's gonna
No.
be like in the future.
Oh,
No.
no.
That'll be July 12th.
Do you think July 12th is good to come back with the,
July 12th.
It's a month.
Do you think
A
your
month.
time? I think,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yep. And well, she has to coordinate too with the library and council.
That's my only concern.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
I
want-
know the library's here,
Yep.
and I'm
So
in
that's
the
really
senior
passionate.
center.
But you want to do the budget you want Park and Rec to go and find out what all the other
what
departments
Melissa
are doing in their budget?
suggested? What-
Yeah.
I thought she was gonna do
I think
I
we're-
wrote down our Park and
we're
Rec
looking at
long-term
our-
plans,
our-
our own department.
Right.
Well, and I think the
Well-
point is, it's hard for her to do that without
Without
talking
knowing
to
what
the
the others
other
are doing.
programming in town to make
Unless
sure.
you guys
there's
wanted to
overlap.
help
So
with
you'll
that.
meet with the other, okay.
David?
Yeah, maybe the commissioners would like to meet with the other as a group effort.
First place I would start would be the service delivery plan, because it's got a lot of that information already laid out. And I'll make sure you have a copy of that.
I'll email
We should
that
have
to you
it too.
tonight. I'll email you the job description tonight.
He doesn't have TV at home, so he'll just read it.
He's a night owl too, like me, or just I hit him on a good day, because.
Go home and have a beer.
I responded at 12:30, so I was like, all right.
So if we have,
Okay.
I won't say clear direction, but kind of sort of clear direction on this going forward, then you're also here tonight to talk about Zaturka Park.
Yes, well, I think.
The bid.
David-
Yeah, so we went out to bid for the Phase 2, oh, there it is. Phase 2 reconstruction of Zaturka Park. Phase 1 consisted of grubbing and clearing the property. There was some initial discussions with the planning board. Some changes were made to the plan, particularly removing a couple of features that people didn't want. And so we're now back to site stabilization, soil stabilization, and additional work of loaming and seeding at the Zaturka Park. So this is reconstruction phase 2. We received only one bid. We sent out 3 packages to local landscaping outfits. Omasta Landscaping came back with a base bid of $36,538 with an alternate of $8,823. The alternate consists of the hydro seeding and hydro seeding and 5 inches of topsoil in the location of the former tennis courts. Total price of $45,361. We have a budget for this project, which is currently $60,000, $594.50. So we reviewed the bids. It's responsive. So we have a lowest and responsive bidder in Omasta Landscaping for the base bid and the alternate combined top price of $45,361.
How does that like advertise for the bidding process? And if you don't like that, bid, do you have the right to send it back out again?
We don't have to accept the bid.
You don't have to accept the bid.
So what's the length that you guys put that out for?
This project was bid under the Public Works portion of the procurement laws, so that requires posting in town hall, solicitation of at least 3 written bids. We put it on the website, and that complies with the law in this case.
Is it 7 days? 2 weeks or something?
I think it was more like 3 weeks.
It was.
I'm a professional as far as grass
Yeah.
seeding or anything. I just would like some comparisons, that's all.
It's rate though.
It's what?
Well, I get that it's rate, so.
It's not as.
Why wasn't it
right.
put in a periodical?
Didn't have to, and speed was of the essence. And
I
so
think it's cost us a lot more to get these bids back because we didn't do that. And I know a person like Wagner wouldn't be anywhere near this bid if he knew about it. He probably never knew about it. That's what he does. He gets rid of stumps, and he's much bigger than Omasta. Omasta hires him to come in and do his stumps. So.
Yeah, it's more than stumps, it's the stabilization and all. Have you looked at the entire list?
You know, and the
I'm not-
alternate one, has there been any discussion with our DPW director? We stockpile loam. We have trucks to bring it there. Tennis courts aren't very big.
The tennis court
Hydro
usually-
seeded 4,000 square feet, cost me $400.
That's awesome. You wanna do it? You
Yeah,
can
no, I didn't do it. I
But
hired a
I
company
appreciate
to
what
do
you're
it.
saying.
But
It's
it
more than
seems
just
like
the
an
tennis
extravagant amount of money in this bid,
Yeah,
to
so
me.
it's more than just, I appreciate that. It's more than just the tennis court. I'll let the commissioners talk to it as well. But it is more than just the tennis court. It turned into a parking lot for years. And so it's more than just the square footage of the small regulation size tennis court that was there before. It is actually a large portion. We just are terming it where the tennis court was.
So is it asphalt removal
It
as
has,
well?
the asphalt has been removed. It's actually adding 6, what is it? You guys?
5 inches, it
5
says here
inches, thanks,
alone.
of loam, and then seeding, and then there is all the stump grinding. There's also additionally putting in shrubbery over on Mr. Dickinson's side, because he had requested that sooner than later.
That's
So-
on the bid, but the alternate,
Yeah.
I'm just referring to
Oh,
the
you're just
alternate,
referring to the alternate.
is the tennis court area only.
Right. But, well, right, again, the tennis court area has changed in square footage, not just the tennis court, it turned into a parking lot at the time, but I do hear what you're saying.
Donald, do you want to make an amendment that it should be rebid?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that
The reason-
we rebid the process and make sure it goes into
you guys want-
periodicals. So everybody has a chance to pick it up for the
Yeah.
bids.
So there's a motion made. Does somebody want to second the motion?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, for discussion?
For discussion.
Would it hurt to ask the DPW to see what they can do, at what level they can do things, and then most certainly maybe Marlo can hire out or find somebody else that can do the things that he can't do?
So we have.
Is that more cost efficient? I don't know if he can do it, I'm just asking.
Yeah, we have asked them, he's not
Okay,
good.
good situation, I'm okay.
So if we ask DPW to do the work, then certainly can ask them, but you know, we have to think about the liability of on the other side of it, is that you're performing work and then you're responsible for the quality of that work on the other end. So I would have I'd have a conversation with DPW, not only in terms of whether they can take the work, but whether that's a good idea at all.
And we have had that conversation with Marlo, and he's been totally upfront about wanting to help us and all, but there are places that professional work and this kind of work in this amount of money that is going through. For example, I'm sure we have people who might give us a shovel and a hand to put in the arborvitae, but then that person isn't gonna come back and maintain it, and if something happens, then, oh, well. And there, you know, that is more of a waste of money, right? So that's why we have all the professionals coming in and doing it rather than the neighbor next door trying to help out.
And really, it's $15,000 under budget anyway. Do you have plans for that other $15,000?
Yes, we have a 9,000, I don't exactly quote me, it's under 96, it's under $97,000 for Berkshire Design, this last phase, they'll be billing us out.
9,700.
9,700, yeah, sorry, what did I say?
1,000.
Oh, well.
But you started 100, you started.
I'm thinking gold.
She's told me that she has 9.
Yeah, that's right, so it's 9,600 and something, coming forward, and they have given us pro bono amounts, and I'll be pleased to tell you that, and I'll give you that amount soon, but we're very excited that they've given us that funding and that amount of money. It's a beautiful gift from them, it really will help us.
Andy, do you want to say something?
I was gonna say that, in a single bid situation, I'm more than okay with sending it back out again. And,
Okay, so that was a question whether or not you guys are okay with the
yeah,
timing.
I am anyway, I can't speak for the rest of them.
If I might just say something, we're in a crunch. I just completely disagree with my commissioner. And the fact that we're in a crunch, we're wanting to bring more, we're asking CPA for more funding, and that would be in our fall meeting.
Yeah.
And we need to see, and they really appreciate work being done. We'd like this at a step process. And so if we get this phase done today, now, starting right away, that will lead us into our fall town meeting. We're going to planning board on the 18th of this month. This process is gonna take a long time, and then we're in the winter months. We followed all the procurement laws, and here we are.
But if we rebid, David, how
long would
it
how long would it take?
You were asking for a, let me tell you.
We have all the paperwork done, it's just a rebid, right?
Hold on one second.
Donna, where did you say it wasn't posted that you think would generate more interest?
In papers, newspapers.
Oh, I thought you meant the periodical.
Well,
Yeah.
periodical is a newspaper,
Oh, that kind of-
that's
okay.
an old term.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I thought you meant like this, the state,
Oh, you mean they're like an estate?
the website.
No. Just so somebody local sees it, either Springfield or, Daily Hampshire Gazette would suffice me for sure.
All right, so the Central Register has
That's
a
what I meant.
publication date of the 21st, and so we'd have to provide at least 2 weeks after that, so we're talking about mid-July
So-
For bid,
for a bid.
to
And a
have
lot
it
of-
come back,
For return.
For return.
for return.
And a lot of these companies obviously have their summer planned. I'm hoping people in that world understand that. So, we have I'm just saying, it may step us back in a place that we might not want to be, but again, this is the commissioner's job, so.
And I do fall, I mean, have not done landscaping for many years. I mean, I
It's more than
don't know,
landscaping.
yeah, I mean, if you're
Stabilization.
saying you've gotten bids lower, we only got one bid in.
That's where the problem
we've
is.
got
If you
one
had
in.
3 bids, I wouldn't have any problem with it at all, because I could compare it. I have nothing to compare this with.
Quite honestly, if the other companies are too busy to do the job, you may end up coming back with one bid anyway.
That's most
Yeah.
likely the case, and twice as much.
And he may not even rebid, then what are you gonna do?
Okay, well, there's a motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Any more information anybody wants to know?
I thought, do we vote on this, or do
No,
they?
kind of depends on this one. Do you have any sage guidance, David? Thoughts that haven't been articulated
I
already?
mean, I have no idea on the.
We went through the limited bid advertising because time was of the essence, I was told, on this project. Certainly if you bid it statewide, which is what we would do for free, you would get a lot more bids. So do you want to save some money and see a project that's done in August and September? Or do you want to go with what you have right now and see the work happen in July and August?
Did Omasta provide a start date?
Well, it'd be nice to get it started.
No, they
I don't
did
remember
not.
seeing one. Did they commit to a start date, Omasta?
I think that, isn't there something in there for a start
I don't
date?
know,
post?
do you have it on your computer? I don't have it.
You
with
know,
me.
just a point of interest, July, August is the worst time to seed.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's.
You
that's
come
what
to
Andy
fall
said.
time, you eliminate the weeds, and your final product is gonna be much better.
What is the start date?
Yeah, there's a lot more to it than, we could probably just, what you're saying is just do the second part, the seeding part, because that again, like, Mr. Waskevich was saying, that's what, $15,000 of the entire amount? So there's a whole lot more to do, like stump grinding, planting.
Can we do that, David?
What?
Can you just take that one piece out you're worried about, which is the seeding?
Can we accept
Yeah,
a
that
portion
would
of a
be
bid?
The base bid.
Base bid.
Right,
What is
base
the-
bid, which is everything else but the seeding and the.
That's where
You
we're
know,
gonna save the money if we go out to bid. This other one, we can save money by possibly using the highway department. So the 36,000, I think that could be reduced significantly with multiple bids.
So what's the pleasure of the board? You heard the
Motion, a
recommendation.
second on the floor, sir.
You heard the recommendation of the
Is there a
Park and Rec
recommendation from
Commission.
Park and Rec Commission?
Well, I mean,
Who
we haven't
do
had a
get a
chance
say
to
in
talk
this.
about it. Andy, said
Are you
the
posted
planting
tonight?
and what?
Are you posted tonight?
Yes.
Yeah.
In a different location.
Do you need 5 minutes?
If we can have it.
You can have it. Is that okay, or?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
they convened a meeting and then they moved over here, that's perfectly legal.
Okay, so you guys want to take 5, we'll
So
move
you're
on
on.
to something
You have
else?
to go over there.
No, no. Okay. Some steps in or something, yeah. We're over there.
She said yes.
They
Just-
just-
just
they
come on back in when you're ready.
Bids and everything.
Well,
Park
but we
and
didn't,
Rec.
Kathy, but we did not know about the possibility
Go
of
back
getting
to
a
the
rebid.
same,
You saw the bid, though,
Right,
right?
we
You
saw
saw the
that,
bid.
yeah.
so David's gonna have to,
Can I just ask Kathy a question? It's off topic, since she is leaving Park and Rec. I want to thank you for all your services. Yes,
Thank you.
Kathy and I are friends, and I worked with her many years as far as basketball and coordination and so forth, and I hope to, I know Saturka Park is kind of like home for you, Kathy, and I hope that you continue working to see it through, especially with whatever happens with the new Park and Rec, or and not the new employee with Park and Rec. So I hope to see that you still want to continue that.
Oh, yes, I'm on the core committee, but I must admit that my name is Zaturka, but more importantly, I am a taxpayer, and this Park and Rec has been my baby for, 12 years. And I think that this is the only future of Park and Rec, if I might be obvious. It would be our only autonomous field that we would be able to use for programming. We're suggesting a pavilion there, which would also be a stay and shelter in case of a storm. And we have plans to have electricity and water in future, but it'll be there. And so it actually is about the only future of Park and Rec at the moment, and I feel strongly about that. It's nice that it was dedicated to my grandfather by select board back in 83, 84. But more importantly, it really is the future of programming for Park and Rec. It's the only place, everyone else has a space, and you keep saying, no, we don't. We do. It's Zaturka Park. And I agree that Chapter 45 and all of the sections above do lay out just that, not hiring and firing. And it is just the parks. And so I feel very strongly about that.
Has the band shell been eliminated? I've heard something to that
Amphitheater
effect.
has been taken out, yes. There was some discussion about parking and really amazing concerts that some people thought might be able to go there. And so it was a numbers issue, so we took it out, yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
But you will have the natural scape that was gonna make that
I
an
think once it
amphitheater.
gets going, families can have birthday parties there.
Right.
And it will hopefully generate some money to sustain itself, and I think it's a great thing.
I think everybody up here supported the.
I can't wait to see it.
Right?
Yeah, I think the common should be used far more as well.
Absolutely.
As long as there's
Parking is an
fencing.
issue over there.
And for
Actually,
kids programming,
and,
fencing is very important, and like the Asparagus Festival used that fencing, there are reasons for that, state reasons, but we could easily fence in
thought they
the,
wanted
temporarily
for
fence
$5.
it in. Yeah, well, that too,
Did they
but it
charge
was
for the parking?
handling kids,
No, it's if there was
Donations.
suggested donation.
and they funneled them
But
in.
I think, I just wanna say, I
Sewer
think the
ban.
officers that did detail for that did an awesome job.
Okay.
They did a good job, in my opinion.
So we're gonna try to get, we just have a couple more items
Sorry.
and that's, okay. So water and sewer abatement on Huntington Road. David, there's a request for an abatement, from a homeowner due to, looked like they had a faulty, bathroom facility, also known as a toilet. And, it sounds like that caused excess water usage, and unfortunately, the homeowner was not able to get a plumber in a timely manner. And as a result of that, they're requesting an abatement.
Motion to deny.
Second, third,
That was fast.
Okay. All in favor of the motion to deny?
aye.
Abstain.
Okay.
Question, Diane?
Diane?
Yeah, we just had a quick question.
Sure.
It did come up when you were in here. Did you pull up that information to see, we don't have the paperwork, if O'Mass had committed to a start date on his work?
Is it spelled out in the contract that there's a time frame it needs to start?
I don't see anything like that.
Okay. So the only other agenda item we have this evening is Select Board Goals and Objectives, which is a continuation from last week. And kind of hard to jump into that one. Hopefully we come up with a recommendation soon. Jerry, would you like to give an update on the Red Sox score?
6-3, the Sox are winning.
I just thought you might know that off the top of your
Fifth
head.
inning.
so.
You want us to do announcements while we're waiting?
Sure.
Well, yeah, well, and actually, I just have something to mention because, and it actually relates to use of the common. The Amherst Area Chamber of Commerce is trying very hard to increase membership and specifically outreach to the town of Hadley and Belchertown. I think that's the greatest opportunity for growth going forward, and recognize that there needs to be a perceived value on the part of those businesses in those towns to feel like they're getting some value out of the chamber. And one of the initiatives that was discussed was people were pretty excited about the Asparagus Festival, but again, that's WGBY coming in and using the common, but very much appreciate the fact that we do have the common over here. Amherst does the Taste of Amherst on their common, and what the thought is right now is the Amherst Area Chamber may be proposing that in the fall, not necessarily this fall, but even a year out, that there be a Hadley showcase. And the idea behind the Hadley showcase would be to really focus on the farming community in particular, microbreweries, vineyards, and things like that, so that it doesn't conflict with and take away anything from the Asparagus Festival, but an opportunity to bring businesses in town together, and it wouldn't necessarily be limited to just the farmers and the wineries and the microbrews, but again, truly a showcase for the town of Hadley to highlight for folks everything that's going on here. And the chamber would be wanting to put that on cooperatively with the business community. So I'm just mentioning that that's something in discussion. Obviously, the first step in that process would be
Sounds good.
getting approval to use the common.
Sort of like a taste of Hadley.
Well, and yet,
Almost,
there
but it'd
could be
more
some food.
farm.
But also, I mean, even some of the really cool things that the farms are doing that are experimental with the university, like some education around it as well. Again, don't want to overlap too much with the Asparagus Festival, so there would have to be a different, and perhaps we want to highlight, garage door owners and.
We don't want our town common to either look like Amherst Town Common or Belchertown, because they certainly haven't kept theirs up.
But with our open minds that we always help and share up here, if we brought the farmers and these people and the residents who
I'm not
the
saying-
retail businesses in and kind of found out if they felt it would be helpful to them. Anything we can do to help the business in Hadley, I am all for.
Oh, I am
Some
too.
type of
I'm
fall-
just a
fall
touch ashamed
festival or
that we have
something like
someone
that.
else doing our
They
asparagus
even
festival.
suggested a cornhole tournament.
A fall festival type thing.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah, like a Hadley Fall Festival.
In
So I just wanna mention
1909, there was a tent on the common for the 250th that had 25,000 people underneath it. That's a big common.
Yes. Do you have an update?
That time.
Okay, so we talked about it briefly, and there's a couple of points here involved, one of which is that since there seems to be no start date, completion date involved, we don't know whether or not the seasonal aspect would really come into play, if they will award a contract and take their time to get to it. And honestly, a responsibility to the taxpayers, I feel that we really should consider an opportunity of soliciting multiple bids, having something to compare it by.
You said I, but you mean we, right?
I said
He
I,
does.
but I do mean we as a commission. So we all voted unanimously
Yeah.
to support the re-solicitation of the bids and distribute and improve the distribution, so we can perhaps get into a periodical that is specific to that, or notify local contractors who have had past, or find out where they're going to be looking for stuff like that.
I think the CPA was that, we don't think that that's really gonna affect.
Because they're not meeting until.
We don't meet until, I'm sorry,
The end of
CPA doesn't meet
August,
until end of August.
Right,
And
ends-
they're-
and yeah.
right,
So as long as it's done by then, right? Well, you're on the CPA now, so.
So you can
uh,
specify.
David, if David could be a little bit aggressive with making sure if you can kind of try to ensure we.
Put a wiggle in it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not a wiggle in it, just a little fire.
So what are we talking about for timing now? That it will come back, the bid will come back?
Well,
21st.
So if we
21st.
advertise on the Central Register, that advertisement gets published on the 21st, you've got to give them 2 weeks at least after that, so.
Mhm.
call
So
it-
July.
We don't have to wait till then, though. We can get it in the local newspapers. The Central Register is 2 weeks, but we have time now to get it out in the local business, in the papers, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything else where we think we should post it?
I have a question, can you do that town news? You know, where if people have elected to sign up for the
Yeah.
town, can you do it on there?
So we will put it on the website, we'll go through ComSpy, we'll do it as a Central Register, the local posting, local media, we'll get the word out.
And there's nothing to prevent anybody from contacting a possible bidder and saying, hey, did you know that Hadley has a bid outstanding?
Oh, yeah,
Right,
absolutely.
so word of mouth.
That's
is
what we did before.
free game.
Okay.
Are you going to put a performance date on it?
Great question.
That would be good.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
can, I don't know if we
performance date
can.
because of the-
To be
you-
To
completed
be
by?
completed.
You can, I'll work with the designer on
And when is
that.
the CPA meeting?
Like,
Last
I
August,
don't think
end of
we
August.
nailed the date yet.
So that would be good.
I talked to Mr. Andy Morris Freeman, who's the new chair of the CPA. I don't think he set a date for the CPA committee yet. We talked a little bit about the timing for the fall town meeting, which has not been set by the select board, so maybe that's something that we could do tonight. but.
I'm with Donald too. I don't wanna see any grass in before September anyways.
Okay.
Everything else can get done.
Okay, so there's a motion made and seconded to,
What is it?
rebid.
Oh,
To
to rebid,
rebid.
okay.
Am I right?
Yes, and then we have the recommendation.
And we have a recommendation from the
I
Park
lost
Commission
the-
as well. So all in favor of
Aye.
the rebid?
Aye.
Aye.
Did you say aye, Don?
Yes,
Oh, of course
yes.
you did. Says I did.
To his own motion? If he votes against his own motion, that's wrong.
Joyce told me to be quiet, so I said it gently.
Oh, my God.
So anything else before we break up?
Yes, I have one more thing.
Yep.
I don't think that our commission is gonna be meeting with the select board, before Kathy's departure. So I was looking through pictures, trying to get them posted for our, Easter event, and Kathy, I was looking at the things, the pictures of my daughter at all of the events through the years, because her age kind of commensurates with your timing, being the park and rec
Oh, yeah.
coordinator. And,
Doesn't it?
yes, and I'd like to thank you very much for all of your time and all of your effort for all of our
That's nice
events.
of you to mention.
Yes,
What's going on here? I'm trying to thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you, thank you,
Well, I'm
thank
writing
you.
the 501c.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay,
Yes,
so,
thank you for
Thank you all, appreciate it so much.
Thank you, good members.
definitely
Thank you.
make some strides.
Oh, yes, you're all very welcome. We'll be seeing each other in the nearest of futures.
That's right,
We hope so.
yes.
As a parent,
Has used.
Oh, God.
oh my.
Thank you.
I would like to give this to you.
Thank you so much.
For your service.
That's so
Yeah.
cute. I appreciate it. Champion of cut. It's
Yeah.
very familiar.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Looks familiar.
Thanks.
It's clear up for you. All right, thank you very much.
Best of luck in
Appreciate
your
it.
new endeavors.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you for your time tonight.
All right,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Is it time for supper?
Just about.
Starving.
All right, thank you guys.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, so the last agenda item is the areas of focus. So this was a discussion we started last time about where the select board feels that we should be spending our time between now and fall town meeting.
Home.
And what we, besides going home. It was suggested that maybe everybody wanted to take a little bit more time to think that through and also offer the opportunity for the finance committee to meet and discuss their priorities as well. So, David, should we start with the finance committee?
Yeah, so you have that on your board docs. Finance Committee had a meeting the other night. They actually created two priority lists. One priority based upon the importance of the topic, and the other priority list based upon how much time they feel they need to invest in each item. So take, for example, the item of ambulance. It's highly important. So they gave that a very high score in terms of its overall importance ranking, but then since there's an ambulance committee that's working diligently on this issue, doesn't sound like they need to put a whole lot of time into it because that base is already covered, so they gave it a low score in terms of priority of time management. Did I state that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. So you have, I think, the first part of that, which is their rankings in terms of importance, in terms of the topic, but I don't think we've seen the one for the time
So
management.
we just have one.
Yeah.
So you guys want to tell us then what you're?
Yeah, we don't have to go through line by line or anything,
No,
but
no.
thinking was we created that list of importance overall to get us all on the same page with yourselves and the school committee possibly, maybe in preparation for our next tri-board meeting, but depending on timetables, that might not work out. Essentially, yeah, just to get us all on the same page on what we can tackle, what we all feel is important as boards. We as a board, when we voted on this, were very like-minded actually on most of the items. There was some lengthy discussion on some, but not really many disagreements. So what you have in front of you is a fairly unanimous kind of rankings across all 4 of our present members out of 5.
So it looks like then from what we're looking at, having a better understanding and a discussion of override options, just getting our arms wrapped around all of that. That's a priority. The fire department and police department staffing and any related capital costs, including buildings, wrapped into that endeavor. And then it looks, and then information technology. Those are kind of the three top. And then from there it goes into the discussion of town structure. So here it's listed as charter, but again, are we structured in the most efficient manner to get the job done in the best way for the residents and business owners? And then wage study. That would, and human resource issues.
Yes,
Looks like those are
together.
the two, right?
Mhm.
And then the implementation of the Commonwealth Compact report and DOR recommendations. Okay, so that's where you guys want to focus. Okay, that fair?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for the Finance Committee, or?
I just have a question as far as the town structure. I watched the meetings, I haven't been here, and I'm not sure, I know how some of you feel on it and so forth, but like this building itself, I feel like, it needs to run very smoothly. And if this building runs and everybody in it and the departments run smoothly, it's gonna show a positive effect on other things. We all have lives, full-time jobs and so forth, and we volunteer to do these jobs, but they're part-time to all of us. And we, as, we look at things, to me, I think the way it is today, we have to start to look at things as more of running them like a business and what's gonna be more effective. That's not always how it's been, and this is only my personal opinion. And going forward, I just feel like if we could look, I was here when the two gentlemen were here telling us, their viewpoints on the different type of management. And I guess I would like to look more into that. Maybe not them, but, really kind of look at to other towns that have changed their form of government that might be our style, our size and so forth. Again, I just feel like that some of the things, human HR, we have employees here, they don't have anybody to go to, and I think that's important. Right. And that's huge. And I think that, as far as like David, he, administrator could, he could do a lot more, but, he has to wait for the other, he has to answer to the five of you. So looking at how much each individual and the time that they spend, is it done efficiently and so forth. And I'm not saying that we don't all do a great job, because all our hearts are into the town of Hadley, making it a great place to live. And I think that still can be there, but I strongly believe that somehow we have to change our government, just because the time is changing and we're growing. And, just like the fire station, this town is growing and they need more employees and so forth. And I just think that that's really important to me. And I think that if we could get this building and the departments in it and the staff in it running efficiently, and not saying that it doesn't run efficiently, I'm just saying more efficiently,
I think we could take
if we could provide the resources there that our town employees need, things will start to fall into play. But I think that to present it to the town people, that's like a lot for them to swallow all at once, but basically I'd rather have all the facts there and really look into it and then say to these people, this is how we feel that is going to make the town run more efficiently and in the way the time is going. And so I think the town structure of the government is really important that, to look into. It's not going to change overnight, and I get that, but you know what? Next thing you know, 1 year's gone by, 2 years gone by, we had 2,000 more people in the town, and we still haven't done anything. So I really kind of think it's, we need to kind of set our, personal opinions aside and kind of look at what will be really good for this town for maybe 2, 3, 4 years down the road. And you have to start now. So, that's my opinion.
Is that just your opinion, or was that how the finance committee kind of?
That's my opinion. I'm not, I've said the same thing at the finance committee meeting. I think that this is why we have two lists. What's really, we need to really spend our time on, and I kind of just feel like the town administration part, IT, the fire department, it kind of all falls in together, you know, and I find it hard to vote on those separately, though we did do it, and there's lots of great reasons and important reasons for each one of those things, but I kind of feel like it falls a lot under the town government.
So to reiterate that and to speak for the committee as a whole,
Right.
Basically the general feelings that going through the budget this last year and then looking forward, we've kind of identified already and kind of dealt with a lot of the low-hanging fruit, as it were. So while we're always on the lookout for that, and we like, easy wins, a lot of what we're running up to now all feeds in to essentially the systemic issues that we're kind of facing. So I think the whole committee was really feeling that, and hence why the list in front of you looks the way it does. So the sentiments are also a bit, because we have some new members, and now that we have some time, we really do want to focus on the education about our options, not jump to any conclusions about what we should do in terms of override or restructuring government, nothing like that, but purely educational, and really try to get the conversations going with the select board, with the school committee and any other bodies appropriate, about next steps.
Right, and that includes the town government.
I think everything both of you said is in the DOR report that was prepared for us. Now I guess we're looking at how are we going to implement it. All of those areas, we know what our problematic areas are. What is the most important? Financial, human resources. That's the answers we're going to have to come up with as a select board and finance committee. They're all important, but what comes first? That's where the discussion has to be, I think.
And this town is split, whether you like it or not. And for 300 and something years, a 3-member board or a 5-member board has run this town. And you're always gonna have that split, whether you decide to go with the town manager, if the people vote for it or not. I think you're just opening up a whole new can of worms by looking in that direction in the first place.
It doesn't hurt to look.
No, it doesn't hurt to
Nobody says
look.
you have to go that way.
But
You need to present options.
Exactly.
And so it doesn't
And
hurt
we
to
need,
look into it.
and we need to start making more decisions here and start heading in the right direction, quite honestly.
Well, that's up to you to decide, that's my opinion, is that, yes, a 3-member or 5-member board has always done well, but we all have busy lives, our jobs are more demanding, it's not where we all have Sunday off and have Sunday dinners together. It's not like that anymore. And I'm not saying it has to change, it's just an option down the road. Hadley could be, it's growing, it's gonna keep growing, to the point where, in my opinion, it's gonna take more than 5 part-time select board, 5 part-time finance committee, no HR person to represent the non-union employees here. Those things need to change.
And no clear accountability.
And no clear accountability. It doesn't hurt to look into it, is what I'm saying. Okay, it's not gonna change overnight, but what if? You can't answer the what ifs.
So
Houses are continually building in Hadley, people are moving here, people wanna live in Hadley.
So let's hear from the select board members too. So thank you for sharing that. We'll park that for a moment. So John, you started, so in the spirit of focusing on what we should be getting done, so your priorities?
Absolutely. I put them down. I mean, the priorities are absolutely pretty much what they said. I mean, we were looking at the HR person. We were looking at an accounting person. You were looking, or someone on the board was looking at town manager. I mean, we've never really thoroughly looked into this and put it out there. It's back to the same thing, It's a simple question on the ballot that would push us in the right direction to make a decision like that, to follow through with. You know, do you think the town of Hadley has outgrown the 5-member board? Do we need a town manager?
I think you need to educate people.
Yeah, we don't,
It's
we need
up
to
to the
educate
people,
ourselves.
it's ultimately up to the people to decide.
But
I think,
theoretically, we
I
could
think
do
Terry
it.
would like to point out the pros and cons of both things, so that
Yeah.
people can
Yeah.
make the decision.
Yeah.
It's about choices. Does
Yeah.
your son want to play hockey or cook or
Yeah.
sewing lessons or whatever? You want to just provide all that.
And the biggest and the foremost issue is how much is it going to cost?
Right, are you willing to pay for all
Yes.
these changes?
Jerry, what about you?
I got a little different list that I put together, just trying to understand what I thought would kind of help us kind of manage the town in our go forward. I think we need to clarify and help our projects along that we have right now, the senior center and the fire department. I think those things need a priority. We linger too long on projects like North Hadley Hall and these things. We need to get options in front of the taxpayers,
Yeah.
whether we build it 12,000 square feet or whether we build it 9,500. This is the cost, this is the cost.
Yeah.
Well, what is the taxpayer's view on it? The second thing I'm looking forward to is getting the ambulance report, because I hear nothing but good things coming from that ambulance department as to a go forward as to what we think we should be doing in the future.
No,
And-
there's no ambulance department, don't scare people.
I'm sorry, the committee. And I think that's gonna help us understand the firefighters that we're, talking about right now, and bringing that to a little more professional level as we've been speaking about right along. So let's clarify the projects, get the ambulance report in front of us. Let's talk about for fall town meeting where we're gonna be heading with whether or not we're gonna be adding firefighters, and if we don't, where are we heading with that issue? Another thing that I think we talk about a tremendous amount is identifying the sources for our free cash. Every year we have free cash that's available. Every year it's almost exactly the same amount of money. Where does the free cash come from? And if we take a look at where it comes from, we can either reduce budgets by the amount of free cash that comes and is generated yearly, or we can begin to understand that if we can almost depend on it on a yearly basis, that we can budget towards that direction with a clarity of fixing the budget in the fall like we've been doing for the last 15 years. Okay. Our DPW, we were talking, because that's one of the next things that's in line. We have our buildings down there that are clearly not the future of where we're heading. However, on the buildings committee, they went out and researched how much it would cost if we took the trailers out that we currently have there, and on a short-term basis put newer trailers in there and rent them. It's somewhat of a 4-year, 5-year down the road, a slight fix to it. You're talking about $10,000 a year to eliminate the problem that we have down there. Whether or not that gets done, I think we need to look at it, and I think the buildings committee is going to be bringing it before us, and I think it's a viable option while we work towards getting the rest of our buildings built and still take care of accommodating our DPW building down there. I've always been a big fan of once a year having all boards meeting, but I would do it different. I would bring in the boards and have them discuss where they're going, what they need for help, and how we can help them with what they're doing, how they can help us with what we're doing. You sit at a big table and talk about the future of Hadley, where we're going. You understand from, because to Terry's point, can you sit and watch every finance committee, every school committee, every planning board meeting, every conservation meeting? Or if you sit in a table once a year and try to orchestrate a conversation around, where the town of Hadley's going from everybody's aspect, I think it gives everybody a clearer vision as to where we're going and how we should get there. I think we need to get a little smarter on some of the things we do. I'm a little sick and tired of every year, once a year, we have the startup of the flea market. And for some reason, I think if we just put the police officers' trailer out there and said flea market Sunday, and everybody says, oh my gosh, the flea market's coming, graduation's happening at Hampshire College, graduation's happening in Mount Holyoke, it's going to be a mess down here, I better do my shopping on Thursday. I think we can avoid having problems. We had the exact same thing happen tonight with this bid. I don't understand why we didn't bid it in our local papers. I do understand why we only got one bid. And I think we need to work smarter when we do things like that. And I think that would go a long way towards making us look more professional and bringing about better results than what we do. And I'm with you, John. I think the water and sewer rates, I think we let that slide. We saw it tonight with regards to the Hampshire Trust. We went 4 years in a row without a raise, and everybody maybe was running around patting themselves on the back, and yet last year we got a 10.94% increase.
Well, I've been
Not so good.
I've
So the
been
water,
saying it for
John, I told you
4
I'm
years.
agreeing with you.
If you went one, listen, if you
I know,
went
it took until
1% over 4
Did you see,
years.
that was the last one on my list. I
Because
knew that was
you
coming.
knew I had something to say about it.
That's it, but I mean,
Geez, I convinced one anyway on the board. How about you other two over there?
I think
Mr.
that helps us
Chairman?
look a little better, and those are the things that I think.
Do I have
that
to
we
sit
could
next to you next meeting,
identify
Mrs.
and put in.
Chungalo, or what?
For what?
Shake you up a little bit over
Okay,
there.
it's late, but so your final thoughts there, Jerry?
That was my
Bring
final
my
thought.
gun.
That was my final thought, was to jack up John before we left.
Much Molly pay you to do that?
That's Madam Chair or Joyce,
Whatever my name
your
is.
titles.
Too late at this point, 9:30.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we keep, I guess we have a problem of just rehashing things over and over again, which I get a little bit tired of. We don't come to a lot of resolutions on some things. I'd like to finish some projects that we start, which would be fire station or our infrastructure for the public safety. I think that is at the top of my list with the ambulance. Finishing the senior center, things of that nature. We've started a project, let's get it done. And I think we're working towards that, but we seem to have a problem getting to the finished project on a lot of things that we start. Human resource, that's at the top of my list also. That's been needed for some time. And everything else that, Jerry has said, and, things that we do. I think, just having that all fall into place at this point, those are my top priorities.
Okay, Donna?
Well, I think as we go forward, what I wrote about a lot was preparation for the 219 budget. I think we're going to answer a lot of these questions on the amount of money that we're going to have to be able to put towards 219. The other thing that bothers me a lot is getting competent people to run for school committee, select board. The cost of being a selectman or a school committee member far exceeds. Somebody like Jerry, I know when I had a full-time business like Jerry, this position has to cost him $15,000 a year, being away from his business for $100 a month. We just can't sustain that anymore because you don't get anybody to run. They can't volunteer all those hours and raise a family today. Both people are working, husbands and wives are working, and to get somebody to volunteer that many, some weeks we have 5 nights we could be at meetings. Or some nights we have 3 meetings on one night we could attend. And it's just putting an awful lot of burden on all volunteer help, basically, and that's reflective in people not running, which is bad,
David, oh, sorry, Jen.
When they had a few benefits, it was worth running for the position. A lot of the old folks that I have talked to that ran and spent a lot of their time, spent a third of their time, because they got the benefit and they put more time into the position that they ran for, Right now, you're looking for volunteers, and just like Terry said, they used to sit down on Sundays and have a meal after church, Not anymore. I don't think anybody does that anymore. Very rare.
I have
But
dinner every Sunday night with my children.
there you go.
I do too.
But it comes back to the town not being willing to pay.
Exactly.
That's where the education has to come.
Yes. And we've robbed Peter to pay Paul long enough here, and somewhere just somehow we need to bring some of that back.
I think the town voted on last town meeting that they were willing to pay for services when they were put together in a legitimate form. And,
Yeah.
and we incorporated everybody. 2
Yeah.
town meetings ago, they said no, because the whole plan wasn't put together.
Yeah.
Last town meeting, they said yes.
Education.
Yeah.
David, you want to chime in?
And I think the tri-boards, periodic tri-board meetings that we've had with the school, with finance committee, with us, has helped tremendously with the direction everybody's going. I mean, you can't say that we haven't in the last, how long have you been on now? 3 years?
Yeah, and you know, the finance board, I speak for all of us, we're committed. We're wanting to meet, we're gonna be meeting twice a month. We're gonna try to make as many as your meetings. 2019 is gonna be a rough year, and again, education is huge if we're looking for money. And so we're committed to working with the select board and coming to common goals, or, you know, where in past history, it wasn't always like that.
Right.
And so, to make you feel better, Donald, you get $100 a month and we get $100 a year, so.
And it's a lot of hours, that's what I'm saying.
It is a lot of hours, but you want to do it and you
You know.
make that commitment. And it also goes back to where I'm saying we all have busy lives.
You know, I agree with her 100% on education. Who would have ever thought 9 ballots would have passed? I thought maybe 3 or 4 at the most, but all 9 passed because people were educated. And it was put in the water bill, and they understood what they were voting on. And they were needs that we had to have. We didn't ask for anything over and above what the town needed. And
David,
so,
do you want to throw your thoughts in here? Or no, you don't have to either, but if you choose to.
So I think one of the things that was mentioned by Tim McInerney and Bill Keegan when they were here, the 2 managers from Foxborough and Grafton, is that take your time in terms of any kind of change of form of government. Take your time, create a committee, spend a year taking a look at what works, what doesn't work, and what would be the right solution for the town of Hadley. This has to come from the town of Hadley, from the people, from the voters, from the elected officials, from the people who are here to help you out on a daily basis. But right now you have a form of government which is very horizontal in terms of its decision making. There's no one person who can make something happen, but everybody has enough negative legislative effort to make nothing happen. So we had an example the other day when we're just trying to take a $10,000 locker room project which had gotten into some trouble, and it took the chief of police, chief of fire, DPW director, the accountant, the town administrator to sit down and try to figure out how do we move this thing forward. It took that kind of coordination in order to get a project out of the ditch. So having clear command of control structure, whatever that happens to be, would help you with getting these projects moving forward and streamlining your decision making and making the whole town government more accountable for the work that gets done here.
And so, you know, in terms of my priorities, I think that we need to start a discussion sooner rather than later about structure. I totally agree with what you said and Terry said too. I mean, this isn't something that you ramrod through and hope that, okay, well, let's talk about it and put it to town meeting. You know, that's not going to happen and it wouldn't be appropriate. So I would like us to, and I am adamantly opposed to calling it anything like a charter commission because that's what they call it next door. So we don't want to do that. But I mean, I think getting a small group of people together that are representative of the community as well as, you know, internal departments and the select board, just to have people think through before you come up with the solution, you really need to be able to articulate what the problems are. And I think Gabriel used the word systemic. To your point, because we have a flat organization, decision making is not streamlined, and it can be very dodgy, and again, there's not clear accountability coming out the other end. I don't know if the right answer is that we move to a stronger town administrator, town manager, but having clear accountability, clear lines of authority.
That's
to
us,
Jerry's
that's what
point,
we voted in.
well, but the thing is, it's not clear. And again, you know, just think about it tonight. We've got a park and rec commission with purview over one thing. You've got a board of assessors with, I mean, some of this is dictated by law, but other municipalities have figured out other ways around it. And I think that we need to be responsive to the frustrations of our staff. And the staff have been loud and clear that IT and human resource support is non-existent, and it has to be rectified as quickly as possible. But then I also think about the group of people charged with coming up with the right solution, and it's hard. I mean, you know, I can say to David, okay, let's meet with somebody, but it's at the whim of my schedule, because to Donald's point, I have a full-time job too, or Jerry's schedule to be able to run down to the DPW yard. An election cycle rolls through. We may or may not be sitting here, and it may be somebody who doesn't have any of that time. Finance committee, we've seen what happens when we have people who are unable to make the commitment truly necessary to be a fully, you know, engaged and knowledgeable member of the finance committee. Kudos to you guys. We're thrilled right now with the composition we have. Hasn't always been that way. So, you know, I think it's worth starting that discussion without presuming an outcome, but I would like to see, you know, us consider forming some sort of a board to consider all of that. And then, you know, IT and human resources, I agree with the capital issues that Jerry and Joyce were pointing out. I think we need to see those through to fruition and make sure that the focus is on doing the right thing no matter what. Even if it means sometimes you have to change your mind midstream because there's new information available. And I'm not at all shy about considering for fall town meeting, putting a couple of articles out there that are non-binding referendum type articles to ask people what they think, if we can do that. You know, so again, to John's point, maybe without putting a stake in the ground, we may want to go to the town meeting and ask them, you know, we're thinking about discussing this, how do you feel about it? And find out sooner rather than later, hell no.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, you know.
Did you put a questionnaire in the water and sewer bills?
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about different ways to do that. I mean, and then there's also, if there's a ballot, you can do a non-binding ballot, but some way to get more input.
And I think you put something exciting like that on
That'll
the
get
ballot, similar to we did the police and the fire substation and the senior center, you might get one hell of a turnout and get some
Maybe a
answers
tiny
you're
house.
looking for.
You get a big turnout, right?
Jesus.
Yeah,
God
and to
help
Don's
us.
point, yeah.
And the solar panels.
Yep.
You know, one last thing, Madam Chair. People have to realize we're not a one-horse town anymore with the buggy going down Route 9. We got between 45 and 50,000 cars. At night, we're still a little town, but during the day, we're a city, basically. And we've got to provide those services for our business sector, and we have to have professional people in the town hall here to provide those services.
Okay, so then I'm, you know, and again, these aren't, you know, 1, 2, 3, but I mean, I think collectively, I think there are enough of us talking about the charter discussion that we should have more conversation about it, and come up with a game plan, the capital planning, which in my mind, you know, certainly the senior center, the projects we have underway, but also to Jerry's point, DPW and working with the municipal building committee to come up with a true capital plan. The ambulance decision, I do think, is going to be significant. I have ramifications in terms of the direction of staffing with our fire department going forward. So we know we talked about fire and public safety, IT and human resources, and then some of the other comments that were made wrapped into kind of how we get there, looking at the all boards meeting and the composition, the format of that, and trying to figure out what to do about the volunteer situation as well.
I think the all boards meeting would be a good place to bring up a split tax rate. I mean, and to understand whether or not it's time for us to start talking about things like that. To Donald's point, I think 2 weeks ago, where he said, you know, much of our infrastructure and much of our resources and safety resources in the community have a lot to do with Route 9 out there, and we just can't run it with the volunteer services that we've been running it with. If we're going to have to add to that, you know, there has to be an expense.
Okay. So what I'm thinking is that if in fact tonight what we're saying
It's
is
not
these
just
are
our businesses, it's the commuters too, you know?
Yep.
It's the people coming through town. It's not just the.
Can't put up a toll booth. I was just
Yeah,
gonna
it's
say
a
that.
toll booth. Are we over a toll booth?
No. You know, when District 2 is here, you know, they're blaming us for the malls, and we're blaming UMass, and we're, you know, you've got 5 colleges here, you've got our businesses, you've got the City of Northampton businesses. You were just talking about the Amherst Business Association tonight.
Yep.
You know, it's all of this stuff put together, you know?
So
It's
what I'm thinking is, and unless anybody's opposed to it, what I'd like to do is make a standing section of the agenda be an update. I mean, if we're sitting here tonight saying these are our priorities, then every agenda we should have some form of an update as to how we're moving forward with these priorities, because there should be some sort of action.
That's what we're doing, it's gonna be on our agenda.
Oh,
every
okay.
meeting.
All right, so does that make sense to everybody? And then, if that's the case, then we'll proceed accordingly. And David, I know we don't really, everybody's getting tired here, so we're not gonna have time to go through your full report, but because we're talking about human resources, I think there was one thing you wanted to talk about.
I would like to highlight it, because we have 5 pages of things that have been done.
Mhm.
You know, and I just highlight it as quickly as you can, David. It's really important, you know.
Okay. All right, so related to all of that, to the priorities, and I'll let everybody read the full report, which is always posted online. Okay, so the related to IT, we did receive the $50,000 award for the Commonwealth Compact IT grant. They stipulated that this would be dedicated to the wastewater treatment plant SCADA system. It's about half the price, so we'll have to raise the additional money at the fall town meeting. Work has to be completed by next June. Molly and I met with the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission in the town of South Hadley related to a direct technical local assistance grant for the purposes of looking at a finance director. The conversation sort of went sideways and morphed into a conversation about some sort of regional approach to IT support. Yeah. So we're exploring that. Related to HR, I signed the town up for the Employers Association of the Northeast to assist with human resource functions. We had an orientation meeting yesterday, and based upon that meeting, the financial management team will meet to develop a course of action regarding strengthening the town's human resources efforts. These efforts will include formalizing the town's hiring processes, and we had a long conversation tonight about what that shouldn't look like. Completing the updates to the personnel handbook, identifying and training, quote, managers, recognizing that some of our managers are appointed or elected boards who are running departments, standardizing personnel information, and updating job descriptions. So that financial management team will be meeting shortly. Related to the financial management team in the Department of Revenue report, they've recommended a more formalized structure for the financial management team, and so we'll be pursuing the upgrade of that particular management team so that it reflects more closely the recommendations of the Department of Revenue. And that, I think, is, and we went out to bid for IT for the server, and I'll be evaluating that information and presenting that to you in a future meeting.
Any update you have on the Bay Road?
Bay Road Bridge is moving along. Time schedule, we're still on track for the time schedule for a 12 to 16 week project. Weather conditions permitting, complete bridge replacement is still scheduled for 2020.
Okay. Anything else for David? Otherwise, we'll go into announcements.
Well, you wrote this MS4. if we got a state revolving loan grant,
Yeah.
then are we still using the money that we got approved from town meeting?
Yeah, so we received $390,000 from the town, from the voters in order to comply with the MS4 grant. So now we have to borrow that money. And so the question is whether we borrow it under the state revolving fund program, or do we borrow it on short-term or long-term borrowing? And we're thinking that the market rate might be more favorable for us to go out on the market. State revolving funds has a 2% interest rate. If we can do this under state house note or a ban, you saw the interest rate that we were getting for short-term borrowing. It could be as little as half the amount under SRF. So we're still looking at that issue. We're still on track for completing our notice of intent, which is the first hurdle that has to be completed by mid-September, and we're well on the way to doing that.
Yeah. Well, no, that's why I asked, because he said, 1% will make quite a bit of difference over a short-term borrowing.
Oh,
so.
sure. Yeah, whatever's in the best interest of the town of Hadley, that's what we're gonna do.
Just a quick question about revenue. I know we haven't had any discussions about putting a solar array on our landfill. Is there a reason why we haven't, where we could generate revenues?
Actually, we have started exploring that. For a long time, we looked at it and it looked like it wasn't feasible because of the infrastructure out there. You'd have to string 1.5 miles of cable, which created a hurdle which couldn't be overcome. But we worked with the company of Nexamp, and they came up with a proposal. Not a proposal, let's call it a concept of putting solar panels there. And they said it could be feasible if done correctly. This would be a long-term project. We'd have to go through the power purchasing agreement. We'd have to go through DEP because they regulate our landfill cap. But it is a possibility, so we're beginning to look at that.
Thank you.
We applied for a grant with Belchertown through PVPA. PVPC. Have we heard anything back on that yet?
Haven't heard anything back yet. I think we're waiting for the federal government to set their budget priorities.
Is there a timetable on that too? Are we expecting it at some point in time? Or, I know we are at some point in time.
Yeah.
Is there a time frame in which we would expect to hear back though?
Well, the federal budget expires on October 1st or September 30th, so hopefully it's going to happen between now and then.
Big vote coming up, Donald, in Belchertown regarding staying with the HCOG, correct?
Mhm.
Next week, that is?
Yeah. It'll be interesting.
Could be pretty telling, huh?
Okay, any announcements tonight? Who wants to go first? I know they're coming.
Ladies
Jerry?
first?
Sure. I'd just like to say thank you to the friends of the seniors. The Chicken to Go was excellent this past Sunday. Enjoyed it. Then we have 2 condolences tonight to the family of Peter Gulliver, who passed away this week, and to the family of Pete Salvatore, who was our building inspector for plumbing inspector for over 30 years. So
42, I think they've said.
condolences to both of their families. That's it for
And the
me.
Chicken to Go, we should also make sure that Peter Ben, Stevie Devine, Richie Cook, Miss Egan, and Mr. Michkowski, Ray, not Ray, his brother, what's his brother?
David.
Worked awful hard, so we really appreciate
It
everything
was a
that
very
they did.
hot day.
It was, and I think we'd be remiss if we didn't wish our good friend Peggy Jekanowski a happy birthday tomorrow. We won't say how old you are, Peggy, but
I know.
congratulations, and we wish you well with your AARP card.
That tells it there.
You know, one comment from graduation, and it really brought a lot of whispers in the audience and everything when they honored Miss Judah.
Yeah.
And the speaker that gave it was a student speaker, and she says part of her career she also dated Donald Trump.
Yeah, I heard that.
Which was amazing to hear at graduation. Everybody, you know, it was funny.
God bless her.
Yeah.
God bless her.
David, yeah, anything?
Jane, you have a shredding day coming up on
We have a
Friday?
shredding day on Friday from 10:30 to noon. and the police department will be cooking hot dogs and hamburgers.
Is there a cost for shredding?
No cost for shredding and contributions for food.
So you could bring your documents that you don't want spread around, but you don't need anymore, and they could be shredded and
Absolutely.
disposed of in an
there's no
environmentally
limit.
sentiment.
And you don't have to, if you get them in your car and drive up, they will take them out.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Saturday, I'm gonna be chasing a little golf ball around with the rest of the fire department in the golf tournament. I hope everybody that registered to it already got in.
Hope you have good weather.
Okay,
Motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn, is there a second?
Can't we just wait till 10 just to get
Just to
Joyce?
make it, yeah.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, good night,
These
everybody,
guys down
thank
the
you.
end of the
Thank you.
table are really giving it to you today.
Yeah, they're a real pain in the ass tonight.
Well, where are you heading for, Joyce? Tell the world.
Tri-board next Wednesday, 6 o'clock.
You gotta go to work tomorrow, what are you talking about?
Oh, I thought you were making.